OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
All right, it's bang on 7:30 this Thursday morning. Everybody thought it was Friday yesterday, and certainly on Tuesday people were going, oh, it's Thursday today, isn't it? Because this has been one of the longest weeks of my life. I don't know if it's been a long week for you.
I'm feeling the exact same, actually. I definitely, sometimes if you just don't think about it, you arrive at Friday being like, see the psychological way that works. Whereas this week I was definitely thinking about the end of the week on Tuesday. Never a good way to be.
No, it never comes. I think it's something to do with the proximity to Christmas and
Yes.
A load of stuff was supposed to be happening that isn't happening, and there's just this kind of general sense of uncertainty in the air.
Yeah, like Friday is the last day of work really for people. I know that you're working next week, but people who show up for work next week are slackers really. They just like to cruise and.
Are you not working every day?
In the armchair. I am working Monday in fairness, but
only Monday. Well, the show will be crap Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday then, and Friday. We're obviously here on Good Christmas Eve.
I'm doing the evening show on Monday, so I won't be with.
Oh, you got a promotion? What? No way!
Got the warm seat.
I'm sickened.
Yeah.
I'm betrayed. You're cheating on me.
But the thing is, Friday's the reason why this week has gone so slowly is because it is the last week.
This is the end.
People who
this is Happy Christmas. I would have worn my Christmas jumper if I'd known that.
Yeah, so would I. It's just dawned on me.
You never speak. You never write. What happened? We used to have something on.
We used to, but myself and Adrian tomorrow morning we will be wearing our Christmas jumpers because we do have something. That's how it works.
If you freeze frame it there, you can see the precise moment his heart broke, Lisa. Hold it there.
You can come on the crappy quiz tomorrow.
No.
Something you'd be interested in looking for contestants.
Screw you.
But what was the point I was trying to make there?
It doesn't matter. This is over now.
The end.
Yeah.
This is the end of productivity. Tomorrow is the end of productivity.
It's the end of us too, Owen.
Good luck trying to get a response to any emails on Monday onwards.
Well, I don't think that's the case. I've got loads of stuff to do next week.
Well, you've put it off too far. You've got 24 hours, maybe 36 hours to get it done.
Oof. Is that the case? Has everybody just phoned it in next week? Is that why this week has been so long? Because you're on the verge of phoning it in.
Exactly, that's my point. A very convoluted way of explaining what you just summed up in 4 words.
All right, so there's actually plenty for us to talk about from the last 24 hours in the world of sport as well. Sir Lewis Hamilton, it's such a great thing that they have that thing where they... I just can't understand. Our nearest neighbours, I just can't understand them.
Yeah.
The Sir thing and the... What? Why does this matter to people? Why is it a mark of you've done this amazing thing, you're a Sir, and you get to bend your knee in front of me, who was born into this thing, and let's face it, I may not be the smartest, and I might accidentally stab you with this thing.
You're getting knighted by a guy who's getting Logan Roy'd by his mother. He is getting Logan Roy'd by his mother. He would, if anything could be possible, they would like to try and move the succession away from Charlie and get away to someone else.
Well, that's why Logan's having the juice.
Well, exactly. Unfortunately, it's a bit too late for the Monarchs to try and redraw the lines of the royal family over there. But you're getting knighted by a guy who is maybe not the most respected even within his own family. But, it's a great mark of respect for Lewis Hamilton.
He showed up for it. Pardon me.
He did. Would you not show up for it?
No, I would not. I would absolutely no.
If there was an Irish equivalent?
No.
The
Irish equivalent is different, right? If the state decides, but this is a family deciding.
Yeah.
It's not actually the state. It's it's a group of people who were accidentally, because of their birth, given this power and wealth.
Yeah. Also, by the grace of God as well. Let's not forget that element of choice.
Yeah, is it the Roman gods, the Greek gods? Is it the Viking gods? Is it? I'm trying to think of other religions that have similar godheads.
I think they all came together to decide
gods.
that the Windsors would be the ones. So you can't dispute that.
I cannot dispute. It's true. I don't have the rhetoric ability to. I don't know. Not for me.
I'm getting that sense. What about if you did something extraordinary, like Bob Geldof or something, and got the opportunity to? You'd say no.
No.
Fair play to you.
No, come on, not fair play. What, you couldn't come home.
You could. Well, yeah, but it's true. Well, he can come home.
Well, there's a mixed reception anytime he's home.
He got a special on the Late Late Show a couple of weeks ago.
He got a special on the Late Show, and then he should not have checked Twitter afterwards.
I actually didn't see that. So
it's like, oh yeah, these people love me even after.
Was it bad?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a strong anti Sir Bob sentiment because of the Sir thing. I think
Didn't catch that one. Yeah. Like, what about
you would take it.
Well, all I'm saying is that if I was in that position, I would just like to know, would I actually follow through on saying no to it? Because sitting right here, of course, I'd say no, not a chance. Look, doesn't he look so silly and all that sort of stuff? Put yourself into Lewis's shoes for a moment. Put yourself into Bob's shoes for a moment. Would you definitely say no to that sweet, sweet metal on your shoulder?
I think not loads of people, but certain people have over the years said no thanks, but no thanks.
No, I genuinely think I would say no, but still, that sense of prestige that they all seem to get off it. There clearly is a kick in it for those individuals that get it.
I mean, obviously Lewis Hamilton is so rich, he's got a private jet and flies around the world in a private jet, but it would be useful for when you're booking economy class on any of those transatlantic flights. If you have, the drop down menu on like, have you ever seen some of those drop down menus? Vassal and weird titles that you don't even know that they exist. Straight to an upgrade. No matter if they're full, they'll find like an extra seat for you.
I was thinking about this the other day, that like upgrade culture seems to have gone. Like, I remember being a kid and like I'd never gone to the United States and everybody was like, if flight was empty, they upgraded us. It doesn't happen anymore, does it?
Show up in a suit. Stand there sweating for an hour and a half in the suit and then like, oh God, I should have worn a tracksuit.
And they still don't upgrade you. Has it ever happened to you?
Got an upgrade, did I? No, don't think so.
Have you ever sat in business class?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, so you just paid for it, or you got it?
No. So, my wife worked in Anglo-Irish Bank.
That's a good start.
And won a prize at the Christmas party, which was on in the Mansion House, and it was like full black tie. This is like peak Celtic Tiger, and the prize was a trip to Chicago, business class, Aer Lingus. We were like, wow, it is amazing. But like, obviously, it led to the fall of the country.
Of course.
So I mean, when Brian had said we all partied, I was like kind of uncomfortable. I mean, I did a little bit.
Yeah, you really did. I mean, that is the definition of it. Like, I mean, it's the worst feeling in the world when you get off that plane and you just see those people smugly getting off after their lovely vertical or horizontal sleep, and we're all just after trying.
I paid for an upgrade on our way back from Japan. Is this what you're getting at?
So, did you actually do that?
On the second flight, when you were like too conked out, and Eoin had stayed up all night drinking and was like barely compass mentis, so we kind of had to shuffle him through and disguise the fact that he was so
Pay for an upgrade
on the second flight.
Oh my God, what a snake! Well, that is unbelievable. I would have made such good use out of that upgrade. I was absolutely shattered.
You didn't even need it.
It turns out maybe I didn't. I don't really remember whether
exactly. It feels sorry. We paid for your upgrade too. You were sitting beside us.
Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And then you just put me back into economy afterwards.
No, you didn't go in economy. You were with us.
That's not true. I've never sat in. I would like to just put that out. I've never sat in business class.
Anything about your trip home from Japan? Anything?
Yes, I do.
What do you remember?
I remember that.
Where did you meet us?
I met you in the airport.
Right.
And then in the middle stop, there was.
Where was the middle stop?
Dubai or somewhere. It wasn't it? It was Dubai.
Abu Dhabi.
It wasn't Abu Dhabi.
They're different places.
I know they're different places. It was Dubai.
London, Paris, New York. It's all the same to me.
Such a jet setter. I remember going into a lounge in the middle stop in the Middle East, and you paying for that for sure. But that was like 30 quid. There was no upgrade to. I'll get you back for that. There was no upgrade to business class.
I'm just saying, Adrian Barry's not looking after you like that.
No, he certainly isn't.
And yet you're.
How do we get onto this again?
I'm not slut shaming you or anything here. If you want to get in touch this morning, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. You can use the hashtag OTBAM, or you can get us at Off the Ball AM. We had loads of other stuff that we wanted to talk about. The Republic of Ireland's group. We're going to know it tonight. This is a big, big day for Stephen Kenny.
Yes, we've done this in the past, trying to go through the options that Ireland can get in the Nations League. How does
the Nations League work, Eoin?
The Nations League is like the Champions League, but just for countries. Think about it like that, because you've got a 4-team group and you play them all twice, home and away, and then at the end the person at the top goes through. Well, the person in second doesn't go through, and the person at the bottom gets relegated. That's how this thing works. There's
some possibility the team in second might actually qualify automatically. There's UEFA still have not decided exactly what the power and the vestige of the group. It's very unlikely, but some teams who finish second in their group, even in the second tier, might end up qualifying automatically.
They've changed it so many times. Like, remember, Ireland finished bottom of their... Ireland has never got relegated in the Nations League, despite the fact that it has been an entirely miserable experience. The first time they finished bottom of their Nations League group, but it was bottom of a 3-team group, and they bumped it up to 4 the next time, so they managed to stay there by default. And believe it or not, they did finish above Bulgaria last time in the Nations League group as well, so they did manage to finish third in back-to-back occasions and stay up. This time you'd like to think that they'll go one better. I think Stephen Kenny's already said that he wants to go out and win this thing. The big question is who they're going to get then in their top seed. And the 4 options are Ukraine, Sweden, Bosnia-Herzegovina and Iceland. I think really I think we probably made this point a few weeks ago. Ukraine and Sweden are probably the 2 you don't want to be getting there, and Bosnia-Herzegovina possibly the most attractive option of those 4. That's the key one for them, because if they are going to stand over this idea that they can go and win this group, that needs to be a bit of a forgiving draw. But I still think pot 2 poses a lot of trouble as well. You've got Finland, Norway, Scotland, Russia in there. I think beating those teams, finishing above any of those 4 teams would be a good result for the Republic of Ireland. Maybe not so much Finland. Maybe they'd be expected to beat Finland at this point. But you've got to remember, Finland were at the Euros. They got to win at the Euros, granted in strange circumstances. Scotland, after having a bad Euros, have been excellent recently. And Norway obviously have this brilliant generation of players, the best centre forward in the continent, arguably. And Russia would be considered always a far bigger footballing nation than Ireland. So straight away you're looking at those top 2 pools and you're saying Ireland would be doing well, certainly, to be finishing above one of them, let alone actually winning this thing out. And then Ireland are in pot 3, and then pot 4 is Slovenia, Montenegro, Albania and Armenia. So getting relegated would be a bad result, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, and the pressure has obviously ratcheted up on the manager, because he said he thinks it's something that we can get out of and use as a springboard to qualify and actually qualify from this. So a big day. That draw takes place at 5 o'clock this evening?
Yeah, 5 o'clock this evening, and I guess that'll be the plans for next summer, because hopefully there'll be an opportunity for people to travel and actually get to some of these away games, start planning your football following around next year, because you can't plan anything around March. There are no fixtures, literally. There are going to be unfortunately no World Cup for Ireland next season. So the Nations League is going to be the Republic of Ireland football fans 2022, you know.
It wasn't a bad night from a Republic of Ireland perspective last night. Certainly when the teams were named, it was big news in that Aaron Connolly got a start, Will Smallbone got a start. That's Smallbone's first start obviously since his injury, isn't it? And is it Connolly's first start since very early on in the season? Did he even get a start early in the season?
To be honest.
Also Liam Scales started again for Celtic. Scales is kind of week on, week off at the moment, or he missed a game. Maybe he was suspended for that, I'm not sure, or injured. But he's been playing left back for 3 out of the last 4 games, and I hadn't realised that he'd started and played all those. He played in the game against Betis. Betis had Joaquin playing 10, and I was like, I must check what age Joaquin is. Joaquin is 40. He's literally old enough to be Liam Scales' dad.
Yeah, like you said this before, I'm not sure people at home think. I was full sure Joaquin was gone, finished, and at least 50. When you said that earlier, I had to Google Joaquin to make sure we were talking about the same person here, because like, I definitely remember playing FIFA in like 2006, 2007, and this guy was a superstar for Betis at the time. I just assumed he was in his late 20s at that point, and do the maths, actually that doesn't make any sense. He would be 40 now, but so yeah, I just thought he was gone, finished. But yeah, Liam Scales and Joaquin shared a football pitch, it turns out.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
like he was part of that Spain squad that was always flaky until it was good.
But yeah, you were saying as well that he was there in 02, which again, no recollection of. Definitely,
I hadn't Googled that.
Well, no, he definitely was, because I Googled it in the aftermath, and I think he was. Did he have a penalty saved against South Korea maybe in their quarter-final, semi-final? Or was it quarter-final? And I think he was part of another controversial moment in a slew of controversial moments that South Korea benefited from in that World Cup. But yeah, he'd been there. So somebody in the 2002 World Cup played alongside Liam Scales. Maybe we're not so old after all.
Okaflex on the bench for West Ham. Ferguson on the bench for Brighton as well. Brighton could have done with him last night, but he didn't get a game. So I don't know. I think we're obviously not getting carried away. Smallbone and Connolly both got subbed off after about an hour. Neither of them left a huge impression on the games they played in, but we're trending a better direction than we were.
Yeah, I think Smallbone showed a few good glimpses last night. I only watched the first half of that game. It kind of flicked over to Arsenal after that, but there was one moment in the first half when himself and James Ward-Prowse were standing over a free kick, and Ward-Prowse runs over it and then kind of comes back to approach the ball, and Smallbone's screw this, and he just takes the ball off Ward-Prowse's foot and puts in a really good delivery, and almost resulted in a Southampton goal. And then he gets an opportunity himself where he just kind of darts through the middle, but his kind of just to the left of goal and blazes it over the bar. Gets a big sarcastic cheer off the Selhurst crowd, but he's present, he was on the ball, he is putting himself out there. He's definitely not a passive player, it seems, Will Smallbone, and he certainly has a lot of self-confidence, which is what you want to see.
Yeah, and they've got a really good track record of bringing players through, and if he could just get a run of 10, 12 games, he might be able to nail down a position. It's going to be a relegation battle for them, but there are good quality young players in that team, and I think the manager's good. He's managed to survive some massive setbacks along the way. And likewise, it'd be amazing if Evan Ferguson was to get a game sooner rather than later. He's a big strong lad. He might be a focal point that they need.
Possibly. I know Brighton were obviously down a few players last night, and that's when he gets his opportunity, but I presume that there's going to be further opportunities over the next few weeks. And it's at these times that you're going to look towards these Irish players, because they are unfortunately down the pecking order in a lot of these clubs, and a lot of these clubs at the moment are in a state of crisis with injuries and with COVID, so they're going to have to step up and actually either fill a position on the bench on match day or whatever it may be. He's still very young, and I think he was one of three very, very young players on that Brighton bench last night. But as you say, it seems to have been a club recently that a lot of Irish hopes have been placed in. The thing is, Graham Potter, if he rates you, I can imagine there's not too many better managers in the Premier League to be rated by and to actually take under your wing. The problem is, the flip side of that is, it seems that Aaron Connolly perhaps hasn't been rated by Graham Potter too highly over the past couple of seasons, and he's given him plenty of opportunities and he doesn't seem to have taken them.
No. Now, OTB AM brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors. Here's what's coming up between now and the end of the show. We are going to join Martin Lipton at 8:05 to talk about Spurs, Arsenal and a few other things that are going on. Sports pages at 8:30, sports news at 8:40. Ciara Mageean is going to join us at 8:50 to help talk about the goal mile and her 2021. Phil Egan is going to join us at 9:10, and Patrick Harding, who is part of the Red Bull team in Formula 1, the backroom team, is going to we'll hear from him at 9:30. He's been speaking with Joe. You flicked over to the Arsenal game. Are you getting sucked back in? Because they were good.
I haven't been sucked back. I haven't been blown back out yet. I am sucked in. That's the problem. That's always the issue.
Well, you've been totally glass half empty the whole way through.
Yes, I have. I have.
Is the glass filling up a little bit?
It's filling up a little bit. I think that they've put in their. I would argue that they've put in their back-to-back best performances of the season at this point. Certainly last night was Arsenal's best performance of the season. And I actually think Southampton at the weekend, despite their opposition clearly not being very, very good, I think was arguably their second best performance.
Amazing at the weekend.
Yeah, it was absolutely sensational, and they've got that a bit but I guess that first goal at the weekend is almost Arsenal summed up at the moment, isn't it? Where that could so easily have gone so wrong, and it could have been a very embarrassing moment. But actually, it had turned out that Arsenal have phenomenal, technically exceptional footballers that can turn that into a really good moment. And those sort of things are only going to get better. The reason why the last couple of games have been really encouraging is just the opportunities that they're starting to create. That they have all this attacking talent, but it did seem, even when they were beating the likes of Leicester, it did seem that they weren't actually creating enough opportunities given the talent they had on the pitch. And it's hard to look at anything other than the manager when that sort of thing is happening. Of course the players have to take some blame for that as well, but all of a sudden, ever since Aubameyang has been left out, it seems that Arsenal have found something that they've...
Is that a coincidence?
I'm not sure. Last night was their highest XG of the season, if you want to actually quantify this. It was genuinely the most dangerous they've been against a team who were in fourth place. Now West Ham, if you looked at them in isolation last night, you'd say that they were mid-table at best. They did look bad last night. Well,
they have a centre-back injury crisis, and they have some other issues as well, but they had a good team out. Their
backups aren't exactly nobodies either, of course. That once you're missing the likes of Kurt Zouma, the standard is probably going to drop off in that position a little bit. But you look at that constellation of Arsenal attackers that they have right now, and I know we were having this conversation a few weeks ago about who is the successor to Aubameyang if you're looking for a new number 9, and I really think Martinelli is the guy. Now whether or not he's going to be number 9 is a question, but whether or not he can fill the void of goal scoring and goals, I think he absolutely can do.
I mean, is he not a winger?
But so here's the thing. So the number 9 thing may not work out for Martinelli. So the conversation may have to be who's going to just come up with the goals that Aubameyang was scoring a few years ago. And you look at the top goal scorers in the Premier League and in world football at the moment, with the exception of maybe Lewandowski and Haaland, a lot of them are coming off the wing. They are coming off the flank. They are getting to 30 goals a season coming from wide positions, and that's what you're going to have to try and expect from Martinelli if that's where he's going to play. I still think that I would like to see her running the team from him at number 9 if Lacazette is going to leave the club at the end of the season. Right now it works though, because Lacazette is such a great number 9, and I've always had such a great amount of time for him. But like, he is out of contract at the end of the season. I wouldn't be surprised.
Was Lacazette the captain last night?
He was.
So maybe they're trying to keep Lacazette. Like, if you get rid of Aubameyang, get his wages gone, it does seem like, I mean, you could sell Aubameyang to Newcastle, no doubt, surely.
Are Newcastle are definitely rich, but are they stupid? Is the
Yes.
question. Okay, nice.
I mean, yes, there must be. And it wouldn't be that stupid. You sign him, he scores 10 goals, he keeps you up. He's not a toxic presence in the dressing room. He's just bad at showing up on time.
Yeah, fair. Like, the thing is his...
Like, there's no sense that he is ruining the atmosphere for other people. It's just that
No.
he isn't where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there, and that's not really what you want. Like, okay, so that sets a bad tone and all that kind of stuff. But like, don't make him captain. You know, just give him a clock that is half an hour fast and say, this is your Newcastle clock. You just be here on time for this. Like, easy to do that. Or send a driver to pick him up.
Yeah.
We have a limo service. Stretch Hummer.
But he has his Batman car.
Well, maybe that won't be so good around the back roads of Newcastle.
Yeah, but yeah, true. Actually, might not be allowed up there. It's a decent shot you make. Like, I think if he came back and everybody kissed and made up at Arsenal, and on that level everything was fine, I don't think he'd score 10 goals for Arsenal before the end of the season.
Well, maybe if he wasn't captain, that doesn't matter. You know, it's like, now that the captaincy's gone, it doesn't really matter. He can just be like that's Oba. You know?
Yeah.
Like, the decision to make him captain seems strange in the first place. Like, when you knew that this was part of his makeup. Like, so I actually don't blame him that much. This seems to be who he was. Thomas Tuchel certainly said that's who he was. So if they didn't do their due diligence on it, then that's on Arsenal. It's on Arteta. But Arteta is learning his trade and is getting better as time goes on. That must be very positive. You must, like, again, we had this conversation with Andrew Mangan a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, there's enough signs there that he's going in the right direction, that the recruitment has been largely good recently. That's all you want. Good recruitment, a style of play, and we're getting better, we're progressing.
The style of play had been the thing, though. Like, what was the plan, especially in attack? What was the plan after Arsenal go 1-0 up? What was the attacking identity of this team? Those were the questions. Off the pitch, everything seemed to be rosy. They actually have a plan. They're signing players under the age of 23, signed players with a lot of money, biggest spenders, and they have the youngest squad in the Premier League. So that's all exciting. And there's no question that Arteta will be a very good manager, possibly at best. But it's just a question of the rate of progression and how quickly is this going to happen. Because, like, I suspect that in 12 months' time we're going to start talking about some of these kids in the way that we're talking about Lacazette, but in a very different way, as in they're going to get cherry picked. Like, because 2024 is when Saka and Martinelli's current contracts are up. In fairness, the likes of Emile Smith-Rowe, he's contracted till 2026.
They'll start doing those deals, though.
So those players that you watched last night are going to be Champions League players. Like, there's no question that the players that I mentioned there,
but they're
Saka,
fourth.
Martinelli, Odegaard, exactly. So, but the pressure then is on this team to finish fourth.
Yeah, it is. Well, it is.
But I don't think they will.
Of course, I mean, there's a good chance they will. Right? There's now a chance they will. 8 weeks ago, there was no chance. They're expected to finish top 4 percentage would have been 1 or 2%. Now it must be around 10 to 15%, right? It's actually, if you looked at the odds, they would be much shorter than that, because you don't get the true price in the bookmakers. But there's a good chance that this Arsenal team could finish in the top 4, and they should be absolutely expecting that. I think your concern about those young players is, like, if the club is being run properly, they will give those young players long-term contracts now with buyout clauses of...
And they've done that with Smith-Rowe already last summer.
So they're getting better at it.
Yes, so what I think is that they absolutely have to get a top 4 in the next 18 months to keep that cohort of players, because the noise around these is only going to grow if they don't get top 4 in the next 18 months. So if they don't get it this season, then next season as soon as the first ball is kicked, the pressure has to be to get Champions League places. Otherwise, you're going to be going into the last year of Saka's contract and he still hasn't played Champions League football. What is the noise around that player going to be?
Well, they have to sign him up now. They have to give him his new deal, like in the next 3-4 months.
And maybe that gets sorted in fairness. But that's just my real concern about this, that like things are going in the right direction. You can't argue against that. It's just the rate of progression. And
Jake Humphrey had the stat that 10 of their 23 goals this season have been scored by players under 22.
there you go. Well, like, I mean, all the players that they've signed have been under 23, so that doesn't...
All my banging on about Villa's crop of youngsters. It's actually Arsenal have the best crop of youngsters.
Yeah, but is it a crop of youngsters that's going to be finish higher than Manchester United or Tottenham at the end of the season? Like, that would be the real concern that I would have. I think Manchester United definitely have the fourth best squad in the Premier League. So
if Antonio Conte can get that Spurs team to finish fourth, that is as good an achievement as winning the league with Chelsea. With that squad that he had at Chelsea, because that squad at Spurs is not great.
Like, I mean, once you have Son and Kane in your team, I think.
But Kane's not Kane anymore. But
the expectation would be that surely Conte can rediscover Harry Kane. I mean,
maybe this couple of weeks off that they have because of COVID is going to help them.
Yeah, like I'd be hopeful if I was a Tottenham fan for sure. Like, I mean, they keep clocking up these games in hand. I mean, they'll be like 10 games off Arsenal by the time this whole thing.
They are playing tonight. I shouldn't have said that because that game's gone ahead.
It is going ahead tonight, and the game that nobody really actually wants to play, Brendan Rodgers is pretty annoyed that game is actually happening. But the only prospect here not the only prospect, but an exciting prospect for Arsenal is reading Roddy Collins and coming to the conclusion that Ralph Rangnick may just be a cod. In that case, sign me up for Arsenal playing Champions League football next season. But in the off chance that Rangnick...
It's suddenly not ridiculous for us to speak like that. That's the main thing.
No, I don't. Absolutely not.
Let's move on. We want to talk a little bit about the South African rugby situation. So Rassie Erasmus is obviously on his hiatus at the moment. He's suspended, and we've seen some dispatches from him. The latest dispatches on Twitter. It feels a little bit uncomfortable. Have a look at this.
Yeah, there we go. Day 29 of the 60-day ban. Like my man Lawrence here is just freeing us up one. Yeah, Lawrence, just do it for us. Let up. Every day is like a Friday. It's a terrible ban, eh? Hey, Lawrence? It's bad. Thanks, Lawrence. That's a good one, boy. Just go through. We'll make sure it's a weekend. It's a weekend. Oh, yeah, it's not the weekend. But yeah, we'll handle every day as a Friday because it's a ban. We'll enjoy it and we'll just work hard in our discipline and get it right. You all done, Lawrence? Take a big sip, brother. Take a big sip, my man. Lawrence, take a big one. Yeah, on the ban. Another one. On the ban, Lawrence. Thank you. Happy Frankie? Places.
So for our radio listeners, there's like a bunch of meat on the table, and then Lawrence is there, and there's another woman off camera who we don't see, and there's a bulldog who looks very happy. The bulldog's basically resting his head staring at the meat, going, "I'm going to get some of this, no matter what happens today. I don't care if they're not going to give it to me now. I'm going to steal it later." And then the camera pans around, and there's booze everywhere, like lots and lots and lots and lots of it. Enough for a wedding, kind of. Like certainly a very, very good party. So, and there was enough meat, I suppose, to suggest that there were other people coming as well, because otherwise someone would be staging an intervention if that was just the three of them there. There was enough anyway. So, but it always feels uncomfortable to me when somebody is ordered to do stuff for our general entertainment. Like, you drink that now, you drink. That made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. So, but that's Rassie. That's how Rassie's been dealing with his suspension, and obviously Rassie's successor, handpicked by Rassie, it seems, Johan van Graan, has met the press for the first time since the news broke that he was exercising the clause in his contract that allowed him to leave Munster 6 months into a 2-year deal. Or was it like the new deal would have started next season, so before the new deal even kicked in? That bit's all a bit opaque at the moment, and he refused to answer any of the specific questions about like how he thought the 5 years had been, or any of the details around like what it was that kind of tipped him in the direction of what first made you fall in love with the millionaire Bruce Craig. He didn't answer any of those questions. He said at the end of the season he'll do that, because they're very focused on. I haven't got the star that has the the question and answer specifically, but basically he was asked like, you know, what's the reason for this? Why did you do this? Do you think it's going to have an impact on your season? It's like, no. Essentially stonewalled the whole thing. And then about an hour later, after the press conference, Bath released a statement saying, Johan van Graan's our new man. It's like, okay, not a very well-kept secret. It came out pretty quickly. And there was a statement from Van Graan in that they're saying Johan is a phenomenal coach with a proven track record of developing teams to be successful on the pitch. He's experienced winning rugby environments at the very highest level of the game and knows exactly what it takes. We have an outstanding and committed group of players and staff here at the club. Johan's experience will add significantly to this. No suggestion in that contract of who exactly from the backroom team was going to be going with them. But they did point out to his ability to bring big name players to the club and to attract big name players. So, yeah, 2 and 2, and you're like, I'm sure Munster are already down the line with a lot of their recruitment. You know, that's the one part of this is like,
and he knows. He's been possibly leading it up.
Yeah, he's been scouting those. So look, and maybe now the new coach doesn't want the players that Van Graan wanted. Maybe the new coach comes in and goes, that's not really my style of play. And actually, I've got a bunch of kids here in the academy who I'm going to make sure that I'm going to give them game time. But there was a little quote from Van Graan at the end. I'm hugely excited for the opportunity to join Bath for the 2022-2023 season, Van Graan said. I see huge potential in this club, the players, coaches and staff. I am coming to Bath to work with everyone and to achieve great success with everyone at the club. This is an exciting next step for me as a coach and for my family in moving to a proud club and a true rugby city.
That's the exact emphasis as well in the statement, I'm sure.
This is an exciting next step for me as a coach and for my family in moving to a proud club and a true rugby city. That's what it says.
Yeah.
Limerick's like a world centre of rugby.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Munster Rugby has a number of urban centres.
No, it's Limerick. Munster Rugby is Limerick, and they finally realised that a couple of years ago, and things have improved massively. It's Limerick. Like, Limerick is one of the great rugby cities in the world.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, Bath is a true rugby city. It seems to be the main sport there. Their soccer team's always been crap.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful place to live.
I can imagine.
It just seems like a little extra word they didn't need to. I'm really looking forward to moving to Bath. It's a great rugby city.
Yeah.
But a true rugby city suggests that, like, I'm coming from somewhere that's a bit like Dublin, which is kind of, Dublin's a soccer town or a football town. A little part of it's rugby town.
Yeah.
But like,
fortress.
Like, exactly. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Are the Munster fans seeing that and going, shut up, you're reading too much into it? Or, like, are the,
But that's an interesting question, because the reaction from the Munster fans is obviously going to be coloured somewhat. So, I would suggest that maybe a lot of Munster fans.
How much more rejection can they take?
But like, see, that's the thing. I'd say a lot of Munster fans maybe deep within them had a good sense of like forgiveness for Rassie Erasmus this summer and all that, because he was
one of theirs.
Yeah,
he's one of our own.
It'd be interesting.
He's one of our own.
It'd be interesting to see if the same sort of forgiveness is granted for Van Graan over the next little while. And it's kind of hard to know. Like, I mean, maybe those quotes are just put in front of him and he just like rubber stamps it and he's like, yeah, well and good. I mean, that's the Bath brand. This thing has been quite strange though. Like, even looking at his comments a week ago, he was asked about the speculation with Bath, which had come up a week ago, and he said, in terms of my own future, as I've stated earlier in the season, I'm never going to get into any contract discussions or speculation over the media. So until there's a decision about my future, I'm not going to speculate anything. But, like, I mean, that's his mode of communication to the Munster fans. And I mean, it did seem that there was a 2-year deal on the table well before last week,
which was signed according to people.
Exactly. That, I don't know, like, was there could more have been put out into the open there, instead of just saying, I'm not getting into any sort of contract discussions or speculation. Like, it doesn't seem that it was speculation that he had signed a 2-year deal. Like, it seemed that it had gone a good bit beyond that last week. And like, absolutely get this. He doesn't want to get into things that maybe are.
So I signed a deal, but there's a get out clause.
Yeah.
And that get out clause is if some massive team from England comes and says, "Hey, come on down, I'll be able to go." Maybe that might not have gone down well with the. We have a break clause that can be exercised by both sides. So if I don't perform, the IRFU can get rid of me. But also, I can exercise that clause.
Yeah. Like I just think that there's a difference maybe between giving too much away and like getting stuck in the speculation, and just being a little bit more transparent about what's actually going on. Because I definitely feel that I would suspect a lot of Munster people have been blindsided by the events of the last 7 to 10 days.
I mean, the IRFU have to accept a little bit of responsibility here. The IRFU not having the best of fortnights, right?
Oh.
We actually didn't get into the there was a hearing yesterday. We'll get into that a little bit later on in the papers, but Sport Ireland, the Federation of Irish Sport, and the Minister were all at a hearing at the Oireachtas yesterday about the future of women's sport in Ireland. And in fairness to Jack Chambers, he addressed the issue head on, and it was like the IRFU statement should have been more conciliatory. We will talk to them and we're going to have proper conversations with them. Sport Ireland and Federation of Irish Sport don't seem to have addressed that in their opening remarks. It seems like a bit of a missed opportunity when somebody's pointing out, and apologies for who pointed this out in the papers, I've forgotten, but so you have the opportunity to talk about this. It's the biggest event happening. It might have been Dave Kelly in the Indo saying, well, maybe I would address the issue. The biggest issue that there is at the moment in Irish sport is like the women's rugby team saying the IRFU is not fit for purpose. Yeah. And there's a hearing about women's sport, and you don't, like, we're aware of this massive story. It's ongoing. We're talking to all parties. Mm-hmm. We're very disappointed with the developments, and we need to listen to what's happening. Didn't say that. I think so. It's just like everybody's a bit uncertain how to handle this.
Yeah, it's
as opposed to, well, let's get in, let's wade in and see what the problem is. Oh, look, the IRFU not meeting their targets on diversity. Might that be part of the problem here? Could be.
And I guess there's like a certain sense of irony as well about sitting on the hands and waiting for something to happen, because that seems to have been what part of the problem was over the last little while, waiting for things to happen, waiting for reports to be filed and investigations to happen into some of the failings in women's rugby. For that to actually happen in this case would kind of be another reason why things have gone so badly for them over the last little while. But it is encouraging to see the Sport Minister not sitting on the defence to that degree and actually coming out and saying the IRFU could probably have handled this a little bit better.
Yeah, and it will be very interesting to see exactly what those conversations are like in the coming days and weeks. It's 6 minutes past 8. If you want to get in touch with us this morning, you can get us on WhatsApp. 087 9180 180 is the number. Or of course, you can always leave a comment for us on the YouTube stream, or you can tweet us at Off The Ball. We will talk a little bit later on with Ciara Mageean about the goal mile and her general year. Are you going to get off your ass and do the goal mile this year? I know you hate charity, Eoin, but is this something that
I hate charity but love running, so I'm conflicted.
I thought you'd broken your shins or something.
And my knee is absolutely screwed, to be fair. My knee is screwed. So that's my New Year's resolution. I could probably run a mile. Couldn't run.
You could walk it.
Couldn't run 5. But yeah, that's my New Year's resolution. Fix my broken body.
Speaking of broken, everything is broken here, so you're going to have to take over for the next minute.
Oh,
my phone is dead, my computer is dead. It's a magical mystery tour for us here.
Well, I can tell you it is 7 minutes past 8 on this beautiful Thursday morning. You're with us here on OTB AM, which is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with the new and improved razors. I think we're going to take an ad break, Ger, because we're going to be hearing later from Ciara Mageean, but next, Martin Lipton will be with us.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Keep up to date with the latest WSL action and the biggest interviews.
You'd be delighted, Karen, if you just had Katie doing full-on attack.
This is the best team I've seen in weeks. Get her up there.
Subscribe to the Koi Gig podcast stream on the OTB Sports app now.
Car insurance is boring, but you don't have to be. Get Set Go is the kind of car insurance you can sort in a few minutes online, then bounce on with your day. Are you ready for quick start insurance? Get a quote now at getsetgo.ie. MCL Insurance Services Ireland Limited, trading as getsetgo.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Some of the Ballygunner players ran straight to the umpire to make sure that John McGrath got a red card. They're not the kind of thing you want to see, really.
No, and maybe just a couple of points before we talk about that, Will. I think Johnny Murphy was thrown at half-time by that red card incident. I'd say, people say you might know what's going on at half-time. You'll hear people talking, and some of the umpires might have phones, and you'll pick up what's going on, whether you're right or wrong, and that game was on telly. And, Ballygunner got away then with their second goal because I can't think of the centre-forward's name. He just charged his opponent straight into the chest, and they got the goal out of it. But to go back and talk about the other end, and that's why I think Johnny was thrown a little bit. I really didn't think it was a penalty in the first place. Barry Coughlin picked up the sliotar, was walking back with naturally enough. John McGrath gave him a tap on the hand to get the sliotar back to take the penalty. Barry went to the ground like he was shot. What's not acceptable in the game and what's creeping in is the two Ballygunner players running to the umpire. Now, there's a couple of ways this can be stopped. There's a yellow card there for feigning injury, which needs to come out from referees. If I was the referee there and I saw Barry Coughlin going to the ground, which I had a good view, which Johnny would have, I would have issued Barry Coughlin a yellow card for feigning injury. And I would have booked both lads for remonstrating with a match official running in to try and get players in trouble and bothered. The referee has the tools to deal with all this, and it would be stamped out. And another incident in Clough-Ballaculla game the other night, when Clough-Ballaculla were well on top, the full back went down for Kilmacud in New York, pretending his contact lenses were down, and Clough-Ballaculla done in the second half with an injury. That's creeping into the game. How can we slow it down when other teams getting the purple patch? But the referee has the tools. Yeah, the referee has the tools to stop this, lads, and it needs to stop.
The OTB Sports app. Listen, watch, read, all in one place. Wherever you are, we're always with you. The OTB Sports app. Available to download now from your app store.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
It's 10 minutes past 8. You're very welcome. If you've just joined us, this is OTB AM, the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on notifications, and then anytime we are live, we'll let you know about it. I'm delighted to say Martin Lipton is with us this morning to talk to us a bit about what's going on with the COVID situation, a bit about Spurs and a bit about Arsenal as well. If you've any questions for him, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Martin, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm okay, actually, despite a rather grey, miserable day, but never mind, that's London for you.
Well, there you go. And is the game going to happen tonight? It looks at this stage like it will happen, although it seems like nobody really wants it to happen.
Well, it appears to be on. Leicester don't want it on. Spurs don't want it on. Don't think any of the fans want it on. Not sure anyone wants it on, but the Premier League do want it on, and therefore it's going to go ahead. They are determined and desperate to get games through. There does appear to be a sort of a rule in place, just that no one will officially say what it is, because if they don't say what it is directly, that gives them leeway to go around it. But effectively, if your training ground is open and you've got fewer than 10 first-team players who are out, unless all your goalkeepers are out, your match is going to be played.
Look, it's obviously a rock and a hard place because the season is shortened and the World Cup in winter next year means the summer break is going to be less, few weeks, and there's all sorts of other complications. There's all those extra games in Europe for these teams now. So I have some sympathy with the Premier League trying to get the games through. What's the general sense amongst you and your football colleagues about how well or otherwise this is being handled at the moment? I
actually think that some of the moans are bit silly from certain managers, but in the case of the game tonight, given that Leicester are going to be struggling to get a team together, there's no doubt about that. They've got no centre halves. Spurs are still suffering from COVID. I mean, the likes of, I think, Son and Moura are unlikely to be available, is my understanding, because they were, I'm told, amongst the ones who went down. So Spurs are going to be at less than full strength either, and Spurs could have played that game against Rennes, which would have got them off the hook with UEFA, and it would have served both teams' purposes quite well. And I don't think that would have been a terrible decision. However, I do see where the Premier League are at, in that they want to get games away. I think the problem is this lack of clarity officially as to what the rules are and regulations, because there are fixed rules in the Premier League handbook, but they don't appear to be followed necessarily.
That's, I suppose, one of the joys of being in charge of your own competition, is that you get to make the rules up as you go along. Not great for the teams, because they don't really know how to prepare for it then. No, exactly. And it's an issue. No, we know that. I mean, Dean Smith was claiming yesterday that the Premier League wouldn't talk to Norwich. I'm told that there was no request made by Norwich. But, I mean, there you go. You see, we have lots of different viewpoints being expressed by different people. But the prime thing for the Premier League is to get the games played. They don't want a slew of matches being off. They don't want to decimate the programme, particularly now when there's so many games. And as you know, December and the Christmas period is perhaps the Premier League's biggest sell to its overseas customers, because it's the only league in the world, major league, that's playing football over that period as a rule, or one of very, very few. So the last thing that the Premier League wants is to have to say to
NBC and whoever else it has broadcasting across the globe. Sorry, no football. It's a big issue. There's the financial element as well. If the matches are postponed, and a lot of them, then there'll be demands for rebates from the broadcasters. They paid an exceeding amount of money for certain games at certain times. And obviously the clubs all want the money. And sometimes you've got to accept the downside of being part of a money-making machine.
It does seem as well that there's another consequence of this, and it's the acceleration of injuries at the moment. That, as you mentioned there, if you have X amount of players available to you, you must fulfil that fixture. But that doesn't take into account the fact that some of the X amount of players could be high injury risks. Like that's a situation that Leicester have had with Soyuncu, who, according to The Athletic, I think, were saying that the medical staff had assessed that he was going to be a high injury risk before the Newcastle game, and he'd been playing at his physical limits for a few weeks. And against Newcastle, he eventually does pull up with a hamstring injury, and he's going to be missing, as you said. They've got no centre backs for this week's game. So, I mean, there's a sense here that clubs aren't releasing full information about who's actually got COVID, but I'm sure our medical departments are pulling their hair out at the moment, because those players who are available who don't have COVID could potentially be at their limit as well.
Well, indeed. I mean, Johnny Evans started the game, having been injured, didn't last more than 5 minutes, did he, on Sunday? However, injuries are part of football. Suspensions are part of football. How often do you get it? If you get one injured player in one department, you end up with three. West Ham lost 2 centre-halves in a couple of weeks. They hadn't played in the European matches. They just played in the league. So unfortunately, injuries, key players do tend to happen, particularly as the season wears on, because of the weight of fixtures. So all of these elements are part of it. And I do have a little bit of sympathy for the Premier League in that they do have a competition to run. But then again, I'm not having moans from clubs about players getting injured when they voted against 5 substitutes, and most of the smaller clubs did. One of the ways to ameliorate the injury situation is to have more replacements. They chose not to have it and are now moaning about a number of injuries when they opposed 5 substitutes. Well, bite a bit.
Jurgen Klopp is wondering why we can't know the identity of the players who test positive. What's your take on that?
Well, when Liverpool start putting out the names, that's fine, and then he can tell everybody else to, because at some point Liverpool will be, unfortunately, victims of this. It's a reality. Everyone's going to get it at some point. Let every club do it, but you can't say every club should do it, and if you haven't yourself, And I'm not sure what's going on at Liverpool. Personally, I think there's a degree of. I think the fans would like to know who's out, but there is a degree of privacy about personal medical situation. Would you want to tell everybody in the whole of the Irish broadcasting system when you were ill? Well,
it became a big thing here that there was everybody who got it told everybody really quickly, because it was like a great story at the start of COVID. Now everybody's kind of bored of it. So I do understand that there is that element of it. It seems some other sports have released players. I guess it seems like what Klopp is hinting at is that this might be handy for some managers and teams down the road to be able to say, oh, a bunch of our players. But I presume that there is documentation provided to the Premier League that there is an evidence of.
Tested by phonetics who are Premier League, who are employed by the Premier League to carry out the tests.
So there's no subterfuge going on or possible.
It's an outside company that carries out all the tests on behalf of the Premier League, and then those results are reported to the Premier League at the same time as they're reported to the clubs.
Right.
That's the way it works. So there isn't anything going. The issue is whether or not there's a consistency in the approach to matches being postponed, not on the integrity of the testing mechanism, as far as I'm aware. And so nobody, it seems to me, should be questioning that. It's whether or not the rules are being applied equally to all clubs. That is the concern of Leicester. They feel that they're being harshly, unfairly asked to play. What I would say is their training ground has remained open. Had their training ground been closed, and that's a decision that clubs don't make, that Public Health England or Wales or wherever it might be, that appears to be, although not officially, the determinant. If there's a lack of, if the outbreak is said to be out of control by the Public Health Authority, that appears to be the clincher.
Okay, let's talk football, right? Because it's obviously more interesting at this point. We'll talk Spurs in a minute, because I just want to reflect a little bit on where Arsenal are at the moment and the Aubameyang situation. Obviously, the list of missteps that Arsenal have made in their appointment of captains over the last decade has become essentially an internet meme over the last 48 hours, where people have just listed off everybody and gone, Aubameyang, the latest in a long list of them. Is there maybe a slight difference in that Arteta is actually finally dealing with this, and that maybe the penny has dropped with the club, that actually you can't just put your best player or the one who is most important or the one who is highest paid as captain, and that maybe finally some strategy is beginning to emerge?
If he was scoring goals and playing well, he would still be captain, I suspect. The fact is, he's been playing like a drain. I wrote a piece last week after one of the games, and I basically, as Everton, I think, and just said, look, it's time that they're getting in an Ozil situation with him now. He's overpaid. He doesn't want to be there. He's invested in the rest of the dressing room, and actually the best thing they would do would be to staunch the flow of blood, cut off the wound and get rid. I wasn't sure they were going to do that, but I suspect that Mikel Arteta doesn't read my column, but nevertheless, that appears to be what he's decided to do. And that this trip to France or wherever it was, not quite sure he went, and he allegedly came home late. I don't know the truth of that, but it appears to be the straw that broke the camel's back as far as Arsenal are concerned. But would they have been looking for that if he'd scored in the last 7 games? I doubt it. If he'd scored that last-minute goal when he should have scored against Everton, I doubt it. Sometimes if you're playing badly, people are looking for things which they don't look for if you're playing well.
I mean, fair point, right? And the fact that they are actually, it looks like staunching the blood flow, what kind of an impact will that have? What is the possibilities here in terms of, it's a very young squad, very impressionable, very talented, and all of a sudden they're in the top 4. Could it be a big moment for this team to actually get rid of something like that?
Well, they haven't played an away game the last couple, have they? So that's the judge of... Arsenal home record, fantastic. They keep on winning. Away record, it's not so clever, is it? Let's be brutally honest here. It's been poor. They are a real Jekyll and Hyde side at the moment. I can't work out whether they're any good, no good, or the same as last year. A little bit of me thinks it's probably the third of that. They're pretty much the same as last year. They're going to beat everyone they should beat and lose to everyone they should lose to. And if they get a good run of fixtures, they'll win a few matches, and then they get pumped as they were at Liverpool, and they were beaten at United, and they disappeared in the second half at Everton. And Everton are, let us be honest, a really poor side at the moment and in serious trouble. And they're at Leeds on Sunday. Leeds are in a right mess at the moment. If Arsenal go to Leeds and play well and win, then it's a different question to ask than it is if they go there, play as abysmally as they have in their recent away games and lose them again, because that'll be 4 on the spin. So it is hard to work out what they do have, unquestionably, is some really good players. I think Saka is an outstanding player. Smith Rowe is developing into a very, very good player. I've always believed that Lacazette actually was a better striker than Aubameyang. I never quite understood why this fating of Aubameyang, when I always thought, he scored a few goals, but his movement's a bit lax. Lacazette, I think, I like him. I have to say, I think he's a very good player, but he wants to leave. He's out of contract at the end of the season. I'm not sure about Odegaard still, but there you go. Partey, a lot of Arsenal fans think he's too slow and doesn't move the ball. None of them really wanted to have Xhaka back in the team. Both the left-backs are doing quite well, but only one of them can play. And Tin is in the team at the moment. The 2 centre-halves, I think they've got a good physicality mix there. And White is growing into being a real player, which I thought he was going to be at Brighton. That's positive. The right-back looks a really good player. He's very swiftly acclimatised to English football. And Ramsdale, having been keeper in 2 of the worst teams in the Premier League in the last few years, has been excellent. Made a series of top-class saves, and rightly in a serious equation now for England's starting jersey. So there's some very good players there, without question. I'm still not quite sure what they are, though.
Is that lack of consistency down to the age profile of the team? Is it down to the manager, Martin? What do you put that down to at the moment?
I think young players are always going to be more inconsistent than more experienced players, yes. The manager's had quite a long time in the job now, relative. He should be starting to find his feet. Is he? Maybe he is. Maybe Arsenal are back, as it were. But I don't know. And if anyone tells you they do know, they're either remarkably self-assured or they're bluffing.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the reality. And in 3 months' time, I think we'll be able to have a much better assessment. And it could well be in 3 months' time, in February, March, saying, you know what? Arsenal are going to finish 4th. They're a really good team. They've got over Aubameyang. They've got everything sorted. They're going in the right direction. Arteta's found his feet. He's found his leadership. The players want to play for him. They're going to be fantastic. Or we'll say, same again. Same again, 7th, 8th, not quite good enough. But we don't know.
The question then is kind of what the teams below them are going to do. And Manchester United and Tottenham, it definitely felt a couple of weeks ago when Arsenal were going through that sticky patch. Certainly after the Everton games, there was a possibility that those two clubs in particular, if they got their act together, would open up a gap on Arsenal. Again, we just don't know what's going to happen with Arsenal over the next little while. But is your gut feeling that under Rangnick and Conte, that Man United and Tottenham will have that maturity and show that consistency that perhaps Arsenal won't show to be the real runners for that fourth spot?
I think United are favourites for fourth.
Yeah.
Still, but let's see what they do in the next couple of months. We're still a little bit of the halo effect of both managers, aren't we? Really, both Rangnick and Conte have only been there for a few weeks, even fewer weeks in terms of Rangnick at Germany, United rather. But I do think that United have got a lot of talent, and they got Ronaldo, who tends to score goals. He's quite good, this bloke. I hear he's getting on a bit, but he's still an incredible goal-scoring machine. They've still got Bruno Fernandes, they've still got Greenwood, they've still got Rashford to score goals. They might want to get someone in central midfield who can pass the ball better than McTominay and Fred, but that's another issue. I suspect they will do if they get rid of Pogba, because there'll be a massive amount off the wage book. Might be looking at right-backs as well. I don't think that Wan-Bissaka's pulling up any trees. But De Gea's making saves again, which he wasn't a few months ago. And United, I think, are a more rounded squad. And also they seem to have a bit more discipline about them as a unit now than they did a few weeks ago. As for Spurs, well, if Kane started scoring goals, it would make a difference, wouldn't it? They got to where they are without the centre-forward and best player scoring a goal. 1 goal all season in the Premier League. Now, Harry Kane will start scoring again. We know that. He's just having one of those dips. And once he starts scoring, if Son stays fit and is scoring, and Moura plays like he is at the moment, then Spurs are dangerous against anybody. Unfortunately, they're dangerous against themselves. I'm still not sure of Emerson, the right back. I saw him the other week. I went to the game with my son, and we both looked at each other and thought, he can't play, can he? He's just not very good. They haven't got a midfielder who can pass the ball. They've got 2 really, really grafting midfielders in Skip and Hobart. Work hard, run hard, tackle, but neither of them can play a defence-splitting pass. It's not in their weaponry. So I think Spurs are still short. But if they are to, give 3 or 4 players to Conte in January, including a midfield passer, including a centre-half, including another striker option, with half a season to go, you would imagine they would be, with Arsenal and United and still potentially West Ham, live contenders for fourth. But that's all they can be, because the other 3 are well clear, well better, even though Chelsea are in a bit of a blip at the moment. That last-minute penalty, I think, has done them a world of good against Leeds. The top 3 are different league to the rest. Let's be brutally honest about it. Let's be fair. The top 3 in England are probably the top 3 in Europe.
That central striker option that you mentioned there, or backup to maybe Harry Kane, or potentially someone to play alongside Harry Kane or ahead of him, is going to be really interesting. And the name that's constantly linked with Tottenham is Dusan Vlahovic from Fiorentina. And I'm not sure how much you've heard about any legitimate links to this guy, but Arsenal, Manchester United, Tottenham are the clubs linked with him. It could just be speculation, but I'm not sure, Martin, have you considered this, and whether or not Spurs are going to look for somebody of this calibre in a number 9 signing in January?
I think they are ready to make a big status signing.
Right.
I think Conte is pressing them. I think Paratici is aware of that and is telling Daniel Levy. And Spurs have, despite the stadium debt, which is astronomical, but because of the way it's been scheduled at only £17 million a year in repayment, and the club will, this year will gross somewhere in the region of 500 million, between 450 and 500 million, with the stadium back on full blast this season. They're in a position where they can spend the money. Whether they choose to is another matter. But I think there's an acceptance that this squad needs fairly radical measures over the next 2 windows. So that next season, when it starts with under Conte, they're in a position to genuinely challenge for the top 4, if not better than that. They're not. If this season, if they were finishing 4th, it would be by default of others as much as by action of themselves. And there's an awareness and willingness, it seems to me, to address that. The squad's got old together, hasn't it? And it looks like Dele Alli will finally be leaving in January if they can find someone to take him off their off their hands. There'll be others as well, because I think that it needs a change.
Are Spurs fans genuinely sad about what happened to Dele Alli, or do they care anymore because it's been so long since he's been relevant?
I hope they really care. I hope that any proper fan would say to Dele Alli, it's not working here anymore. It did for 2 or 3 years. You were outstanding. Go away and find yourself and come, and be a footballer again. Be yourself. Be the player you should be, because you shouldn't want a player to fail. Not one of your own team. And he was the first 3 years at Spurs. He was a revelation, wasn't he? He was absolutely outstanding, scoring goals, creating goals, doing things that you didn't expect, showing that devil, wanting to win the ball. He had 3 outstanding years. And ever since then, probably since the World Cup, you could argue, and certainly since 2018, the end of the 2018-19 season, because he played okay-ish at times in that Champions League run. For 2 years, he's not been there. He's been a ghost. And there was that quote from Mourinho, which was quite brutal. You Dele or Dele's brother. I think it's a fair question to ask, actually.
What was his best position?
I think he's playing off the striker, running in behind. That worked when Spurs played with a 3. Actually, that was when he was at his best, because you had it was various lines, wasn't it? It was a back 2, but Dyer dropped in with fullbacks pushing into midfield alongside Dembele, who gave them so much physicality and strength. And then you had the attacking 4 or 5, and he was one of those. And he was able to make runs without having to do too much defensive work. He was able to gamble, and he would get in behind because defenders were scared of Kane and worried about Kane, and drew to Kane, which left space behind, and he took advantage of that.
So kind of an attacking midfielder, or not quite a number 10, because he's not a...
Not a 10, but just behind. I don't know whether that would be a 10 minus or something like that.
Yeah, an 8 star or something like that. What's the story with Kane? What are the range of outcomes here at the moment? Like, let's assume, I don't know, do we assume he just does start scoring goals again? That's automatically going to happen?
Well, given the number of goals he's scored not for Spurs this season, or for Spurs not in the Premier League this season, it's pretty clear. He's still got 18 goals. Just only scored 1 in the Premier League. He scored all those goals in it. Now, I know one of the games was San Marino, but he scored that incredible goal against Poland. He knows how to score. He hasn't forgotten. And the last couple of games, he's looked actually much sharper. The Norwich game, he could have scored 4. The one that went just wide, he doesn't try the shot if he doesn't back himself to score. So it's just a question of when it goes in, I think. And the second goal against Norwich came from his snapshot from the edge of the box, which the keeper did really well to push aside, and they scored from the corner. He isn't playing that badly. He's just not scoring goals. The Brentford game I went to, the 2 best passes of the night were played by Harry Kane. Instant balls, control, bang, splaying into space. Nobody else on the pitch could have played that pass. He's just not put the ball in the net. But, all great players have periods when it doesn't happen, and then it starts happening again. I don't think anyone at Spurs doubts Harry Kane's going to start scoring again. And if anyone does doubt that, then they're idiots.
And has all the talk of him leaving disappeared with the arrival of Conte? Is that now a story that is finished? Harry Kane will be happy to play at Spurs under Conte?
I don't know for certain, but that's all the mood music you're getting, that he suddenly realises that Spurs are serious. I don't think he ever really wanted to leave, but he wanted to play for a Spurs team that were going to be challenging, and didn't think they were going to be challenging with the managers they were talking about who were selected. If Conte had been given the job in the summer, I think the desire to move question would have disappeared pretty swiftly then. But it didn't, because of what happened, and he didn't want to play for Nuno. He thought he was not the sort of manager to take them forward, and guess what? He was right. But then again, there's a lot of us saying that it was a bad appointment at the time and thinking it couldn't last, and we were right. However, he is ambitious to win trophies. And if he looks across and he looks in the summer and thinks, you know what, these signings are rubbish, they're not very good, then you can see him pushing again. I think in his heart of hearts, he would love to win a trophy with Tottenham Hotspur. But the primary goal for him is to win trophies. And if it's not going to happen at Tottenham, and he sees it's not going to happen, then he'll look again to move, because he knows that he'll be defined, like every player is at some point, by what you win and not just who you play for.
It's a very interesting period in his career. Like the arrival of Conte, I suspect will give him a pause for thought. And this transfer window and the next transfer window are, I suspect, going to ultimately decide whether or not he pitches in and commits to it. The England jersey over your shoulder there, number 20, is that Phil Foden from the Euros?
No, it's Wayne Rooney, actually. No, it's me. It was to celebrate 20 years of covering England, but it was it was presented to me by Rooney. In 2014, when I was younger and had hair and had a future, as opposed to having no hair and I'm old and I've just got a past. But yeah, and now I'm actually the last England game in San Marino, I was back covering them, but that was because of COVID absentee, so it's not the norm. But no, it was a celebration of my departure from one role into another.
Very good. It looks like it's shirt worn. Are they grass stains on the front?
No, it's just there's signatures actually.
Okay, very good, very good.
But it's such a big room. No, it's not. It's a very small room.
Martin, great to have you with us this morning. Thanks a million. Cheers. Martin Lipton there giving us his thoughts. Do you think Harry Kane's going to stick around now?
You gotta see the Conte thing out. It would be a bit. It's kind of like you're playing with house money a little bit. It'd be a bit. Well, now that I said it, like there could be like one last offer from Manchester City before they get sick of Tottenham's nonsense for Harry Kane, and January could be his last opportunity. But I don't think City are going to go in for him in January, are they?
He must believe that he's got a chance of winning the World Cup with this team and being the star player and the captain. I thought it was Phil Foden's jersey because Foden wore 20 at the Euros, and that's where I was going to go with the end of my Harry Kane questioning there. But turned out Wayne Rooney ain't going to win the World Cup anytime soon.
He is a manager.
I mean, who knows? Stranger things, not many, have happened though. 8:35 this morning. In the ad break a little bit earlier on, Brian Gavin, I thought it was really interesting what he was talking about with Will and Tommy on this week's episode of the Club Championship Show, that the mechanisms and the rules are there within matches to sort out all the shit that's going on at the moment. All the diving, all the asking other players to get booked, all that stuff. You can the referees and the umpires and the linesmen, assistant referees, whatever they're called these days, do actually have the power within the rule book to fix that. But we just don't use the rules.
Mm-hmm. I'm not fully aware of what the rules are. Is it like
he was said you can book people for feigning injury? Yeah. You can book people for remonstrating with an official.
Yeah.
So if I come over to you and go,
black card,
give him a book.
Is remonstrating with an official black card?
I don't know. Maybe abusing officials.
Abusing. Then there's a line there maybe. Like you do rarely see it. You
never see it.
I'm trying to think of a moment, and it is hard to think of one. Like considering it happens in soccer all the time.
Well, the crisis in refereeing that all sports are currently suffering from, there hasn't been any yet official response to what happened last weekend, has there? If there has, I've missed it.
Don't think so. I've missed it as well.
It's kind of disappointing, isn't it? You feel like this is an important moment to get out there and say, cop yourselves on. Now maybe the disciplinary process has to go through, and you want to let the heat come off it so you don't inflame passions. I don't know. Club Championship coverage and Off the Ball, by the way, is brought to you by AIB, proud sponsors of the Football, Hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. Check out the hashtag The Toughest for more. The Club Championship Show, which was the clip that you heard from there, is live every Wednesday across OTB Sports. Sarah Donovan was on alongside Brian Gavin and Will and Tommy on this week's episode. You can catch it in the OTB GAA podcast feed. There's been nothing yet on the Montpellier Moylock referee incident. So
I guess maybe the question is how big a story is this? Like compared to say the real flow of information that you had a couple of years ago when all the brawls were happening, that felt like a much bigger story than the referees thing is at the moment, because maybe the referees thing is far more ingrained and it's a far more common occurrence.
Well, the referees thing was a big enough story that it was before an Oireachtas committee 3 weeks ago when
fair point
when like the GA put out their Director General to speak about it.
Not in a GA, like that was a sport-wide Oireachtas committee on refereeing. Obviously, it does seem that the GA are on the sharp end of this particular scandal, and
well, it was their players chasing their referee across the pitch, and it's not a scene that was like a shock to us in that we've seen this movie before.
We have, but not to the point where we'd seen one. Maybe we had the previous week and the previous week, whereas with the brawls thing, whatever year that was, 18, 19, that was just like a constant stream of the evidence got so overwhelming in a short period of time that it felt that, I'm not even sure what happened, but it definitely felt that that became like very much on the news agenda for a period of time, whereas this maybe hasn't reached that point, and maybe the association haven't been moved to actually say anything or do anything about it. So it'll be interesting to see how it develops, but we're going to see one of these again. And maybe the difference between this and the Brawl story, I don't know why I'm making this comparison, but the difference between this and that story is that this you would be just as likely to see in an inter-county game. The Brawls things felt like a very parochial club GAA set of incidences, but we've had many occasions over the last couple of years of inter-county managers bringing the game to similar disrepute as the Mount Ballymoy Lock players did the other day. Maybe not to the same level of aggression or physically chasing a referee, but similar levels of disrespect towards refs have been shown at the very top of the game as they have been shown at the bottom grassroots level of the game, and that for me is possibly why this is a tougher issue to actually fix, because it's everywhere within the sport.
Look, there's plenty for us to get stuck into in that over the next while. I'm going to run you through the newspaper headlines. We can start with OTBSports.com. Katie Taylor remains open to Holly Holm or Chris Cyborg super fights. I think she should take the Serrano money first and then get into those, because they're all kind of makey-uppy fights, right? It's heartbreaking. Marcela Mora Irojo on Sergio Aguero's rags to riches story. Minister Jack Chambers critical of the IRFU response to disgruntled players. Blackmore, de Bromhead and Keane win at Horse Racing Ireland Awards. We'll talk about those, John Duggan, in just a second. And the Irishman inside Red Bull on the show last night. We're going to speak with him. We're going to hear from him a little bit later on the show as well. The back pages of the London Times is top flight teams hit by COVID chaos. We don't know the exact numbers. That's what Klopp wants. FIFA's 10% cap on agent fees. And there's a cricket story there. And of course on the front pages it's Lewis Hamilton being knighted by Charles Windsor. Is that his official name, or is it Charles something or other?
Prince of Wales.
Is he still? Did they not make the other one the Prince of Wales?
Oh, did they? John is here. But
well, I did do the podcast of the Crown, but that was only a moment in my life that has now ended, so I don't know the answer to that.
If I Google Prince of Wales, yeah, Charles is still Prince of Wales on.
They're the Windsor family, aren't they? The Windsor family.
Is that their surname though?
Yeah,
Is there not like some
German name?
Yeah, isn't there?
No, I believe it's Windsor.
All right, they're actually
because
born and christened Windsor.
I'm not sure.
All the COVID stories. Sergio Aguero's retirement. There was a picture there where Pep was at the retirement announcement. Was that right? Was Pep
Pep was there. Yeah, Pep was in Barcelona yesterday.
Right. But Aguero's dad accused Pep of crying crocodile tears when Aguero left. Remember?
I don't remember that.
Oh yeah, I mean it was the OBJ father passed the ball. League accused of COVID rules bias. This is the London Independent. That's right. It was the Telegraph.
Aguero's father accuses Pep of faking tears.
Yeah.
After striker's farewell appearance.
Yeah, and then he shows up in Barcelona just to protect the brand. Just make sure that you're protecting the brand. Look, he's a very important part of our history. There's going to be a statue. Is there a statue of him scoring the goal against QPR? I think there is, isn't there? At whatever the name of the stadium is. The
Etihad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they should have. I know it wouldn't have been on Main Road, right? But they should have, like, if you're trying not to pretend that you have no history, then you should have kept your history.
Yes, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is just called the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium at the moment because they're waiting to get it sponsored. So it's not even called the New Hard Hart Lane. It's just this, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Pep was unbelievably. He gave a lot of credit to Sergio Aguero yesterday. His quote, he said, "Maradona conquered Italy, Messi did it in Spain, and Aguero did it in England. His numbers speak for themselves."
It's a very nice thing. I would think it's true. He wasn't treated very well by Pep over the last while. So Nightmare Before Christmas is the back page of the Star. Meltdown, Prem bosses in fury over COVID crisis. John, what's going on? What do you...
Well, I think it's a four-horse race now for fourth in the Premier League. Arsenal, West Ham, Man United and Spurs, and Leicester possibly, if they go on a run, possibly Villa and Villa. Stephen Gerrard's.
They're 100 to 1. I just checked the prices there.
Stephen Gerrard's Villa. I think West Ham are at an altitude that they will slip from after last night. 2-0 win for Arsenal. Gabriel Martinelli and Emile Smith-Rowe with the goals. They didn't miss Aubameyang. They played really well. The question for Arsenal is, can they keep the consistency? That's been their biggest issue. Brighton 0, Wolves 1. 11 games now without a win for Brighton. Aaron Connolly started, was pretty ineffective. and we had Crystal Palace 2, Southampton 2. James Ward-Prowse scoring an 11th direct free kick in the Premier League. Was quite a staggering run. Thomas Frank has just come out and said that he would like to see all the games postponed this weekend because Brentford have 13 COVID positives among their players and their staff. They go to Southampton on Saturday afternoon. Jurgen Klopp calling for all players to be getting in on the act to get vaccinated, and he's also asked for clubs to be open about who has got COVID. They play Newcastle tonight, 8 o'clock start. Chelsea against Everton, 7:45. Leicester Spurs, a match both clubs didn't want to happen, is a 7:30 start at the King Power Stadium. Up to 19 Man United players and staff could have COVID. Is their game against Brighton going to go ahead on Saturday? Jack Chambers, we saw promising a frank discussion with the IRFU over issues pertaining to the women's game. 62 current and past players writing to the government this week to criticise union stewardship of the women's game in the country. The IRFU responding by questioning the tenor and timing of that communique, with 2 independent reviews ongoing. And the Minister for State has said he was disappointed in some of the remarks in that IRFU statement. Leinster not travelling this afternoon to Montpellier for that game tomorrow night, which is live and off the ball. We'll see if they can get out there tonight or tomorrow when they have the latest PCR round of testing.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be live and off the ball. We hope the game goes ahead, obviously if it's safe to do so.
Yeah, and is the case that they split the points, which might be the situation, because Montpellier also have COVID positives at the moment.
Yeah, who do you give the 28-0 to?
Yeah, well, I don't know. The 28-0 I really disagree with. Rachel Blackmore winning that Irish Racing Hero of the Year award at the Horse Racing Ireland Awards last night. Unbelievable year for Rachel, Grand National winner, and also the leading jockey at Cheltenham. The man who trains the horses she rides, Henry de Bramhead from Waterford, won the National Hunt Award. Obviously, after his incredible year, all 3 of the top races at Cheltenham and the Grand National won 2. Colin Keane, the flat champion, won the Flat Jockey of the Year award. Jennifer Pugh from the IHRB, the medical staff, won the Contribution to the Industry award. Good to see Ada McGuinness and Paul Hennessy win awards as well. And Honeysuckle was crowned Horse of the Year at the HRI Awards last night. And on the Saturday panel, lads, this Saturday on Off the Ball and News Talk, 1 o'clock to 5 is the show. About 1:30 the Saturday panel. We'll have George Hamilton, who's written the book The Nation Holds Its Breath, and also Brendan Fanning, who ghost wrote Willie Anderson's Crossing the Line. So they're going to be on the show talking about how they got their books together, the construction and the process, and also their experience of sports books and what they've enjoyed reading this year. So I don't know if you have anything to add to the pot on that.
Seems to have been a good year for books in that,
rugby-wise anyway.
Well, Keith Earl's book seems to have actually been good, where a lot of the recent rugby autobiographies have been like, and then I did this, and then this game happened, and then this game happened, and then I had a falling out with this coach, and then I nearly went abroad, but I didn't, because the IRFU look after their players so well, and that's 18 chapters, and it's like, not great.
It's moved away from that now, hasn't it, really? I think Keith Earls has probably changed the game a little bit on that, or maybe the game had been changed a little bit, where he realised he'd had a little bit more than that.
Yeah. I mean, it probably is the confessional memoir style as opposed to sports book, which has crossover appeal. But then I think something similar is the crack with Willie Anderson's. I haven't had a chance to read Willie Anderson's yet.
Yeah, and I'm also looking forward to reading that book about the Lions Tour in 1997, which has got good reviews.
English's book.
Yes, yeah. And I bought Simon Cooper's book about Barcelona, which I think is one of the most fascinating.
Is it like this size?
No, it seems quite an easy read from reading the first few pages. And obviously he's brought out the Football Against the Enemy I Know, which you really like, Eoin. So that's definitely one for me to get through at Christmas, as well as the Hockey book, which is non-sporting. But yeah, look, folks out there, if a few sporting books I could recommend if you haven't read, like even just generally. Agassi's book, Open, is amazing. Dallas Cowboys, Boys Will Be Boys, Jeff Pearlman, an absolute riot of a read. A Brilliant Orange on Dutch football from David Winner. A Rough Ride, Paul Kimmage, is like the Old Testament of great sports books. King of the World, David Remnick, about Ali, and any book on Clough is good. Duncan Hamilton's Provided You Don't Kiss Me. I'm also kind of pairing through Jonathan Wilson's on Clough at the moment as well. So there's just a few from my side of the fence.
What have you got for us?
I must do a shop and actually get some of the new books, because I have not been on top of the sports books this year whatsoever. I'm not going to lie. Usually I am. Usually kind of read them as they come in. We obviously just didn't do many sports book interviews on the show this year, but must do that Cooper book, must read Earls, and must get Willie Anderson. And I think that could be a decent couple of weeks over Christmas getting those 3 done. They seem to be.
And Aidan O'Mahony's as well.
Aidan O'Mahony's. I must get that as well. I've read been very, very bad 2021. I guess I've been more on the audiobook side of things this year by the library, and unfortunately there's such a battle for every book that if you want to say, I'm not even sure if Keith Earls' book is on the library, but were it to be there, you probably wouldn't be able to reserve it until this time next year for an audiobook, which is, I just need to get Audible basically, and
Audible is great.
Shell out some money for what I'm
as long as
listening
the narrator is good, Audible is great.
Yeah, I like the self-narrated books. Whoever can be bothered to do that, I think that always just adds a whole other tint to it, because they're reading their own work.
Roy Keane did his own, didn't he? I think he did.
Did he?
I think I'm pretty sure he did his own with
that.
Yeah, which is like it's not somebody else's voice doing the. And then I said this. It's like, and then I told Carlos, "Do you sleep with your wife?" I was like, "Oh, what? There's audio of this, right?" If you're into American football, The Dynasty, that book by Jeff Benedict, we had him on the show. I think early.
What's that about?
It's about Belichick and Brady.
Oh, okay.
It's actually they're in the. So Brady gets the job the first time when the existing QB Drew Bledsoe has this horrific injury which he nearly dies from, and they're actually in the hospital room with Brady and Belichick when this conversation is happening, and it dawns on everybody. They're like, "Ooh, you're going to be starting next week," and then they go on and win the Super Bowl that year. And it also has the third part of the relationship. Bob Kraft, who owns the Patriots, and there's just good information in it. So if you're into American football, that's a good one.
That's the one. Like, I've seen a lot of football writers over there saying that it's very, very hard to write anything on the Patriots anymore. But this book absolutely knocks it out of the ballpark, the amount of new information that he's got.
That might be the Seth Wickersham book, is this? So there's there's been another one since that I haven't read, but people were raving about the Wickersham book and how it broke down more than the actual bits of it. So Wickersham always interesting as well. So. Anything else?
No, that's it. That's it, lads.
All right. Well, enjoy. Happy Christmas, John. This might be the last time we're all in the room together. Owen's basically finishing up today, he said. He's phoning it in officially.
I'll see you on Monday.
Well, I'm finishing up Saturday, so happy Christmas, lads.
I won't see you on Monday. All right, John.
Happy Christmas, guys. Thank you for everything.
I hope you enjoy it.
And I certainly will do my best too. And stay safe, folks. And
what's Santa slipping under the tree for you, John?
Rest. Yes. rest and family time. I think that's all I need, and a bottle of champagne.
We all need that. That's perfect. John, good stuff. Thanks so much for that. Happy Christmas to you.
And yourselves.
OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Right, so loads of live sport coming up this weekend on Off the Ball. At 8 o'clock, it's Montpellier versus Leinster in the European Champions Cup. We hope. On Sunday, we hope, Leicester Tigers versus Connacht in the European Champions Cup from Welford Road. On Sunday too, it's Spurs against Liverpool, live from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, the as yet unnamed and unsponsored stadium, as John has just pointed out, with Nathan and Brian Kerr on duty for that. So that's the live games that we have for you, COVID permitting. Unfortunately, we are back in that territory where games are getting called off, but stay tuned to us and make sure you have the OTB Sports app and your notifications turned on, and as soon as we get any notifications about those games changing, we will let you know about them. Now, we're delighted to be joined by Irish Olympian Ciara Mageean. Ciara is a Goal Mile ambassador, an event which is proudly partnered by AIB for the first time ever this year in supporting goal and encouraging people across the island of Ireland to step up together and take part in the Goal Mile this Christmas. AIB is helping reach vulnerable communities already suffering deeply from the impact of crisis, poverty and climate change. You can complete the Goal Mile by registering at goalmile.org and taking just 2,000 steps in any place at any time during the month of December. So you don't have to do it at one of the officially organised ones. You can just get on, get the app, get the website, register and do your mile. Ciara, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Good morning. I'm not too bad, thank you.
And a happy Christmas to you as well. I see you're festive over your shoulder there.
Yes, I placed myself in probably the nicest part of my front room, so I thought I'd go beside the Christmas tree for sure.
Are you in full training mode at the moment, or do you relax a little bit around this time of year, kind of because there's not that much happening?
No, training continues full force. So obviously had a race at the weekend, the European Cross Country Championships that were hosted at home in Dublin. And but there's no rest for the wicket. I don't really get any downtime over Christmas bar one day that I don't have to run. So yes, I'm still in full training, and I'll have a 9-mile run and some hill strides later on today.
What do you do with that one day? Is it like 17 cans, load of turkey, ham, everything? Is you just try and squeeze everything into that one day?
It's actually usually the day that I plan to do activities with my family. So I go out with my dad and our dogs, and it possibly could be the day that I do the Goal Mile up at home in Portaferry. But believe you me, the rest of the days are spent certainly eating plenty of sweets and my mummy's pavlova. So despite the fact I'm in full training, it doesn't stop me enjoying the Christmas spirit.
Does training, so I presume that the goal mile is on Christmas Day, right?
It can be Christmas Day, it can be the Stevens Day, sometimes it depends.
So do you train on Christmas Day?
Yes, actually I tend to usually train on Christmas Day because it seems to be the quietest day out of the whole Christmas build-up in my family home anyway. Christmas Eve is often quite busy and hectic with everybody trying to get ready for that big day. So I tend to get up a little bit earlier and sneak out and get a session in. There's been many Christmas mornings where I've been seen running up and down the Windmill Hill in Portaferry or doing a session along the shore. So I quite like it. It's nice. It's enjoyable to get out and do a little bit of activity before you kind of overindulge in the Christmas spirit. And I suppose that's one advantage of the goal mile as well. As you said, it can be on any day over Christmas. Every host has the opportunity to put it on a day that works for them. I tend to have to find a day that works best for me in Portaferry to host it. So mine, for example, this year is going to be on Boxing Day. It's been on Christmas Day in previous years and Christmas Eve on other years. So it's nice. And anybody who gets out often tells me it's really nice that they got out and were active on that day whenever we usually are kind of sitting about, probably eating an awful lot of tins of sweets.
It's so interesting. So many sports people say that exact same thing about training on Christmas Day, that people like it. It's as if there's this sort of drug about doing something that you know that maybe your competitors aren't doing or that the average Joe isn't doing on that day. That there's a hell of a lot of motivation to actually just getting out on Christmas Day.
Yeah, I suppose for me it's fairly normal, and I've done it since I was a young athlete anyway. But yeah, there is that little part where everybody else is tucked up in their house and you think, my God, I'm a badass because I'm out on Christmas Day. And it gives you that little bit of a boost. So it gives you that little edge. You think you're pretty good. And often everybody else is just amazed that you train on Christmas Day. If you're chatting to other athletes, they're usually fairly, oh yeah, we got the run done and then we settled in. So we're all so used to it. But you do get that little tint, and I'm usually coming back to the house and now that we're all a bit older, my siblings are only waking up whenever I'm getting back from my run, as opposed to days of old whenever we were up at the crack of dawn and racing down the hall to see what Santa brought. We tend to wake up a little bit later and we're a bit lazier with regards to our Santa presents now. We're not up quite as early. So Santa never gets caught anymore.
That's fair enough. The cross country at the weekend, have you always been a dual runner, always track and cross country? Because that's kind of the grand tradition of Irish racing, that you end up doing both.
Yeah, I suppose for me, in many ways, I cut my teeth in the cross country, and that's really where I began the sport of athletics. I started with cross country at schools level, and that's probably where I was kind of discovered and spotted that I was a good talent in this sport. And it took me from the camogie then. So I've always really aimed to focus on the cross in the winter. I would say that my talent definitely lies on the track. I'm much stronger on the track over 1,500 metres than I am on the cross over an 8K. But I've been doing it since I was a junior. My highest finish at a Eurocross would have been 9th place in the previous cross that was hosted in Dublin in Santry back in 2009. So it's always been a stalwart of my winter prep, and to be honest, any opportunity I get to get an Irish vest on my back and represent my country, I take it. And I feel that I'm always fairly a strong member of the team over the cross country. I've been a scoring team member on many occasions, so it's something that I enjoy. If you ask me once I cross the finish line, I probably would say otherwise. I often am in a bit of a heat after the cross country, but it's always been part of it, and I think it's a fantastic thing. Being a middle distance athlete, not too many of my peers actually do the full cross, which I raced at nationals this year, and I often try to aim to get to for the Eurocross. But I think it serves a really good purpose for keeping me strong over the winter.
Look, I'm completely ignorant about this, but it seems like it's a completely different discipline where you're running up and down, it's mucky, you're not quite sure of your footing, and yet when you're on the track, it's completely honed, thoroughbred. Every single stride feels like it's mapped out. Is it a different mindset? Are you anxious that you might pick up an injury when you're on cross country, or is it just actually running is running and I'm overthinking it a bit?
I never worry about injuries. I train all year kind of on different terrain, so not all of my training is on the track Monday to Sunday, so I tend to be off-road. I run on paths and trails. I'm living in Manchester now, and some of the trails here are a little bit messy, especially in the build-up to the cross-country. We get out on fields and we run on different terrain just to kind of get us used to that proprioception, because you are right, you can fall, you can slip, and it's certainly not as pristine as a track, for sure. For me, I just get nervous because it's definitely far over my racing distance. I race 1,500 metres, 800 metres on the track, and at senior level, I'll swim in race 8K with talk of it going up to 10K. So that's just the only thing for me. It's a whole different ballgame with regards to the energy systems that I use, and just that race in mind. It lasts a lot longer, and there's a different feeling in the cross. So that's usually what I get a wee bit nervous for, but I thoroughly enjoy it. It's just a whole different world of pain whenever you race the cross country.
Is your nutrition totally different heading into an 8K race than a 1,500K race?
My nutrition, sorry.
Yeah. Like, do you have to just eat a load more before you race the 8K than you do the 1,500?
Not too much. Like 8K's a distance that I would cover easily in training. Most of my miles, training wise, whenever I do a session, I cover about 12 miles in a training session. So in respect to that, I basically cover that distance when I train, especially over the winter. So I'm very much prepared for that the whole time. So my prep is pretty similar with regards to nutrition. And if anybody knows me on race day, I find it very hard to eat on race day. I'm that nervous. So, I'm usually pushing a piece of bread and something about maybe some porridge about the plate, trying to get whatever I can in. So for me, it's just about eating a lovely dinner the night before, a big dinner the night before, to make sure that I have enough energy just in case I can't stomach my breakfast too much.
Does that work, or does sometimes the nerves and not eating on the day affect performance?
No, it works. I have a very good plan. I make sure I get something in so that I'm not hungry, and I warm up and then I take an energy gel right before, right after I finish my warm up. So just to give me that reassurance that there's energy in the system, just in case. It's one of those gels that you often see the marathon runners take on the course. So yeah, there's never an issue of me running out of steam in regards to that. The only issue is if I've just went too hard and I lose the legs a little bit, which has definitely happened in previous cross countries. But that's all part of the game, and we see it regularly over the cross. Some of us go out a little bit too hard, some of us measure it perfectly. But no, I've pretty much honed that nutrition well over the last good 10 years of racing cross.
Ciara, when you're looking back, it's the end of the year for us, and we get into award season and we get into a very reflective mode, whatever, that kind of stuff. How do you look back on the year, given everything that happened around the Olympics time? What's your sense now of the madness for you that we didn't know anything about in advance of it, and kind of even just the preparation, the injuries?
Yeah, I suppose I'm a person that chats openly and honestly whenever it comes to my championships, and especially in reflection after. But whenever I was in that lead up and suffered a few injuries, it's the type of thing that I just focus on and hone in on, and then I try to get through, and I don't draw too much attention to it, because me in that moment needs to improve. And it's not really something, whenever you're wanting to go out and compete against the best in the world, you don't need your competitors knowing that you were suffering an injury in the immediate lead up to the race. Whenever I reflect back, my season was a difficult one. 2021 is certainly going to be a year that I look at with a little bit of frustration and a little bit of disappointment. It was a very tough year all round. Obviously, with the start of the year, with Jerry Kieran's death, my coach, my previous coach Jerry, and that was something that hit me very, very hard, and took a long time to kind of process. And then I focused on the outdoor season. I got ready for that, managed to tear my glute. I don't even know if too many people know about that. Managed to tear my glute the end of March, early April, which then I had to work hard to get through and miss a little bit of training. And then obviously in the immediate build up to my Olympic Games, I tore my calf. So it was a very strange year for me, having never torn anything before. My left leg seemed to just want to sabotage me this year. So it was very disappointing to know that I was in good shape and to really want to put my best 2 feet out there in the Olympic Games and represent my country. And, it's my whole life's work. For that to be dashed a bit was very hard to come to terms with. But in saying that, I've processed it now. I've chatted to friends who have went to the Olympic Games and come away disappointed, and realised life throws many disappointments at you. And if you really just dwell on that negative, then you'll really not be able to find any joy in those moments. And I wanted to look back and remember my previous Olympic Games as something that was positive and a huge privilege to represent my nation at that level. And to be a 2-time Olympian is something that's truly special as well. And hopefully I'm aiming to be a three-time Olympian. So I'm trying to change the the dialogue in my head towards it to be a bit more positive. But I will be disappointed to have not really got to show my true form out there.
Was there something that was said? Was there a moment that the penny dropped for you to change that mindset, to help you through that process and look at things in a more positive way?
Yeah, I'd say for me, I came back and I started realising, like, people are like, oh, how was the Olympics? And people were so positive and so they really enjoyed it. And despite my Olympic Games being something that wasn't what I wanted and what I really aimed for, I was like, life's too short to be negative and to be putting those negative vibes out into the world whenever people are asking me about it. Also, I realised after the Games, we never really got to chat at large with our fellow Irish athletes because obviously being a COVID Olympics, we weren't really allowed to mix even within the team. I was obviously among the athletics team, but among my other fellow Irish athletes, it was a little bit disappointing. I only got a couple of brief chats with some of the other athletes. But when I did, I realised there's a lot of us that are coming away slightly disappointed. There's only a handful that come away with medals. And it's very hard to, you know, have that best performance out there in the day, despite all of us trying so hard to do it. And I was like, okay, we're all feeling very similar. And this is kind of actually part of the journey of sport. And whenever I came back, I have a teammate here in Team New Balance Manchester, Yet Fastenberg. She competed in Rio. Before I was competing in Rio too, I didn't know yet back then. She came away from that Olympic Games disappointed. And I was trying to talk to her about, you know, we have to actually look at this in a positive way. We're Olympians, and that's something to be so proud of. So I think those moments really made me try to re-clarify that and reevaluate and be a bit more positive in it, because there's no point in always being negative.
No, it's true. At the same time, you definitely need to process the feelings of pain and that, because you referenced it there. It's your life's work, and you're trying to. It's such a tense balancing act for athletes, where you go to a major championship like this, and we've been asking you for the last 4 years, about 5 years in this case, about the Olympic Games, and you're so excited about it, and then a really random weird injury, the glute. I had just doing a little bit of reading. I think it was a Carl Dennehy piece. It was like no one's ever really heard of this before, particularly for finely honed athletes like you. So that must have been a bit of a setback. Going into the Games, what was your mindset? How well did you believe you could do, or did you had you already made peace with the fact, not made peace, had you already accepted the fact that you weren't going to be able to be at your best?
Yeah, I suppose that was something that was very hard for me, because obviously I chat saying there about like processing that. I spent a lot of time in that week leading up to me entering the Olympic Village and competing, battling with my demons, crying a lot. To be honest, whenever the initial injury happened, I feel like I held it quite well. I'd imagine the medical staff were like, here's what taking this very well. And whenever I sat down, in as much as the injury was the reason, it even just had to take time off in the week leading up. I basically had to take a week off, 5 days to a week off running in the lead up to my Olympic Games. And to put that into perspective for people, I usually take a week off a year. So the fact that very week leading into me competing in the Olympic Games was just me being able to spin to try to keep up a little bit of aerobic fitness, but I wasn't able to run, was something that I find very, very hard. And whenever I sat down with my coach Steve, our physio Ciara, and our doc Alan, and they said, okay, I think the best course of action is to give this calf as much time to heal, and you can aerobically train on a bike. I got up and I left the room and just cried in a separate room, because I was like, my goodness. I was tempted to nearly punch one of those lovely paper walls that you get in Japanese settings, but I didn't, because I didn't want to do that to that lovely hotel. And just that sheer frustration at all the hard work that I had done had just been dashed, and I knew that it was going to impact me. But I entered the Olympic Village and I focused back in. I did runs and strides the day before I got to compete. I felt good, and I said, okay, no matter what, I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to give it absolutely everything. I chatted to my sports psychologist, Kate Kirby, and she ultimately said to me, okay, the doctors had presented me all of the fact that I'd go out and race and I could make this worse, which I knew was going to be the case once I put my spikes on and I'm running full pelt. There's a definite chance that I could make this calf tear even worse. But Kate was like, okay, if they tell you that you can run and you might have a very bad injury at the end of it, or you don't run at all, which is the decision that you're going to do. And I was like, no matter what, I'm toeing the line. I'm not walking away from this race. So that's the mindset I went in with it. I'm going to give absolutely everything out there, and I felt good on the day. I just feel, honestly, that week leading in of not having running had its effect on me. I wasn't as sharp as I usually would be, but that was the prep that I had to do in order to be in a place that I could run. Otherwise, I may have not actually been able to run due to pain. So it was hard. I had to process a lot that week and processed a lot before I left the village. And believe you me, it's certainly a driving force in my training. It's 3 short years now to the next Olympic Games. And whenever I get out and I'm out training now, I'm thinking 3 years to that Olympic Games, and I'm doing everything I can to be in the best place whenever I toe the line there, and I'm not going to have another Olympics robbed.
How did you injure the calf in the first place?
It was just a very strange, innocuous injury. I was doing my very last session before the Olympics. It was basically the week ahead. Not a hard session, a usual session, a wee tone-up, as me and Steve called them. I was doing 300s on the track, had my spikes on, was starting off fairly steady, and then the plan was to get down to race pace, kind of faster than race pace. So for a 1500 metre runner, faster than race pace for me is about 800 metre pace. So I was just doing my 300s. I felt good. I did one, and kind of coming up to my last one, I ran down the back straight, and I was like, oh, my calf feels a little bit stranger there. And everything in hindsight's a wonderful thing. I wish I had stopped on that 100, but I was like, you're okay, keep running. I got round the bend, and I was like, oh no, something's definitely not feeling right. And I kind of finished the rep, and I walked over to Steve, and I was like, I don't know what happened, but something happened to my calf in that rep. Our physio was at the track for this, so I took my spot. I said, I can't finish the session, I'm not going to. I walked down to Ciara Mageean, and I said, I'm not sure what I did, but I had a very strange feeling in my calf on that rep. And now it's sore, and I don't feel like I could jog on it. And they were like, right, you're not jogging on it. I cooled down on a bike. And I'm very grateful to the medical staff, because they did everything they could and did everything so quickly. I had it MRI'd, went and saw the doc, and was told that I just had a very strange calf tear, which is something that I'd never done before. And looking back, we were trying to figure out why this happened. Was I dehydrated? Was it just more force going through the calf? And I couldn't find an answer, to be honest. I don't think, sometimes you just don't have answers for these things. It's just so frustrating that it happened. And it's even hard to know now what I could actually do in order to prevent it happening, because I do an awful lot of calf rehab and have been doing for years now, because I've long-standing Achilles aches and pains like many runners. So it's very tough, to be honest. But it happens, and it got to the point as well where I was chatting with my sports psych and the physios, and realised, okay, I'm not going to have a definite answer to this. It wasn't like I stepped off something and, it was just very strange and very innocuous. So I need to stop chasing that. I know I'm doing even more rehab. I wouldn't even say more, but I'm honing in an awful lot of different stuff with the physio that I'm working with now in Manchester, and we're trying to make me even more strong and more robust, and make sure that stuff like this doesn't happen again. But it's the thing as an athlete, we tread a very fine tightrope between peak physical fitness and just pushing our bodies too far, and it's a tough balancing act. And unfortunately, for some reason that day, it just tipped over on for me, and I'm very, very upset that it did.
I'm sure. That point I made earlier about the tension between your athletic identity and your identity as a person, is that something that you're going to have to address as well over the next 3 years? Given that you said you're heading to Paris, you want to go to Paris, that there is an opportunity for you to make sure that it's not just your life's work, that you as a person is also evolving and developing at this period?
Definitely, and I think it's something that as I've got older as an athlete, I've become an awful lot better at, realising that my full identity as Ciara Mageean isn't wrapped up in Ciara the runner, which many people know me as. And of course, I feel very honoured that people know me through my sport, and this is a fantastic opportunity in my life to be a runner. But I realise that those people around me love me no matter what, no matter how the running goes, that they're very proud of me for all of the hard work I put in, no matter what the result is. And that's something that's taken years to probably realise, and something I struggled with as an underage athlete, especially in my under-23 career. suffering some really bad injuries as a junior at the end of my junior career and missing my whole under-23s. I didn't feel like I was anybody without running, whereas now I know for sure, and I take my injuries, I work hard through them, but I don't let them crush me completely. And even this winter, I've had a couple of rocky build-ups this winter, and I take it on the chin. I focus, I look at the training that I can do, and hopefully I'm an example for my teammates around me, because it comes to us all. We all get injured, we all pick up injuries, and it's as much for everybody in life as well. You know, you don't let one certain thing identify you completely. So yeah, I feel like I'm an awful lot more rounded as a person, and I'll probably continue to do that. And that don't get me wrong, whenever something goes poorly in my athletics, it has a big impact on me, because it is my life's work, and it will be until I hang up the spikes. But in as much as anybody else would be disappointed if something that they put so much time and effort into didn't seek the rewards and the results that they wanted. But I know that I'll come home and everybody will love me all the same.
No, that's true. I think you're an incredible role model, and sometimes we thrust the responsibility of being a role model onto people who aren't ready for it, but you're clearly ready for it, and I think your response to the adversity that you've come through is inspiring and will continue to inspire people. And I think we're all delighted that you are back in an Irish singlet, and we wish you the very best and a happy Christmas, Ciara. Thanks a million for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
That's Ciara Mageean there, who's always brutally honest whenever she talks to us as well here on the show this morning, helping to promote the fact that the Goal Mile is happening. You can register for it. You just take 2,000 steps in any place at any time during the month of December. Register at goalmile.org, and it's being supported for the first time by AIB, who are helping Goal to reach vulnerable communities already suffering deeply from the impact of crisis, poverty and climate change. If you want to get in touch with us, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. And we'll take a break, talking Phil next.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
He's a lion, he's a Grand Slam winner, he's Ireland's leading try scorer, and now you can hear him first, exclusively on the OTB Sports app.
One of my abiding memories is having my cut opened up again as I got hit by the trophy in Coppers on the dance floor.
Join Brian O'Driscoll for the best insight and analysis this rugby season.
We haven't had the usual kind of grenades from Gats, that's gone, so we're creating them ourselves.
Get the jump on everyone else. Download the OTB Sports app and turn on notifications now.
Car insurance is boring, but you don't have to be. Get Set Go is the kind of car insurance you can sort in a few minutes online, then bounce on with your day. Are you ready for Quick Start Insurance? Get a quote now at getsetgo.ie. MCL Insurance Services Ireland Limited, trading as getsetgo.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Are they building that John Giles statue outside Ellen Road?
Oh man, well, hey, it would be nice if they did it when he can come and see it himself, wouldn't it? Eh?
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I tell you, it's funny, you know, I never got the pleasure of seeing him play. I've had the pleasure of meeting him, Nathan, at Ellen Road a few years ago, and there's one thing a friend of mine said to me a little while ago. He said he was the best player he ever saw. He said he was phenomenal. People talk about Bobby Collins adding the winning mentality, Eddie Gray's, Lorem, everything, but people say John Giles was the best. He could do it all. And what an accolade that is to have in a lead shirt, eh?
Certainly is. We'll leave it at that. John Giles will be with us 7:30 tomorrow night. As always, we'll be talking about that 7-0 defeat, which he never brings up. So I think it'll be a perfect opportunity for a bit. And we know what his memory's like. He'll remember every single minute, and he'll remember who made the mistakes more than anything. It won't be himself. It won't have been himself or Bremner, that's for sure.
Right. I wonder will Nathan be as brave tonight? Tune in to see for 7 o'clock. 17 minutes past 9. Phil Egan is with us. We couldn't get Kevin Kilbane to explain what's going to happen in the Nations League draw tonight, Phil. He's currently unavailable, so you'll have to do. And frankly, I expected a much more competent job.
Yeah, Owen's all over it, in fairness. I'm just looking at the teams that I'd like Ireland to get. Is that all right?
Yeah.
So I think Iceland obviously had a really good run to get to a couple of major tournaments, but things have fallen away from them. I'd like Norway, because Finland are there. Finland are not as good as Norway. Well,
they're still better than us a bit, aren't they?
But why not have
go for it, yeah.
Erling Haaland playing at the Aviva Stadium? That would be class.
50,000.
Absolutely. And then, obviously, we're in pot 3. Pot 4, probably looking at maybe Armenia. So we could get those we could get those nostalgic bits done when Keith Fahey scored to give us a 1-0 win away to Armenia under Trapp.
Armenia could be a good place to visit. You know.
Yeah. Isn't there
a show there for a weekend? Were you there?
I wasn't. No.
Isn't it like season 3 of Parts Unknown? Anthony Bourdain goes to Armenia.
I thought you were going to say season 3 of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, because they've an Armenian link as well. Like, you know?
Of course, yeah. That was a good episode. Like, I mean, all the stars come from Armenia, it turns out.
Yeah, so that's the kind of draw I'm looking at.
So Armenia, Norway, Iceland.
Iceland, yeah.
Very Nordic.
You could get. I mean, we could be in a
Is
group.
Norway Nordic? Did we get this before?
Yes.
We
yeah. Bosnia, obviously.
I think
it's in Bosnia for the playoff. That was the night of the fog.
Oh, sorry, Norway, Scandinavian. Sorry,
not Nordic.
Not Nordic. Sorry, Iceland though.
Iceland Nordic.
Yes.
No.
I don't know. Is the honest answer. Sorry, Bosnia are the team to get.
Bosnia wouldn't be a bad one either. So if you're looking at pot one, Sweden or Ukraine, like there's the thing about the Nations League is we're all fairly similar in ability. That's why we're in the same league.
It's true that we're all in the same league. A lot of these teams are slightly ahead of us in that. In international football, if you have a couple of good players, that's all you really need. If you have a competent manager and a couple of really class players, you can go quite far, as we've seen with Wales in recent tournaments. We have the competent manager. We just don't have the really class players just yet to catapult us up to the next level. That's not to say we won't get there.
Yeah. No, and you're talking about players coming through, and from an Irish point of view, you were looking at the team sheet that came in for the Brighton and Wolves game. And you think, right, Aaron Connolly's got to start here. Probably even more significant was 17-year-old Evan Ferguson.
Get him in. Give him a game. What could go wrong?
Well, Connolly was taken off. He didn't do very much. Obviously, I was watching the Arsenal game, but because of the kickoff times being different, I was able to watch a bit of this. One thing he did do was he stood on Sa for a corner for Brighton, and Sa, the Wolves keeper, kind of pushed him in the head. And he went down. He completely milked it. And you're kind of just thinking, you need to just get on with the game if you're Aaron Connolly. And we've seen this in the past as well, where he just seems to rub officials up the wrong way. That's not going to help either, where, look, there was contact, but not enough to go down as if you've been clobbered with a right hand from Katie Taylor. And that's the way he was rolling around on the ground. So I personally, I would prefer to see him out on the left where he can get the ball and get running. He was in the middle and very little touches. I'd love to see his touch map actually, because he just seemed to be wherever the ball was, it just never seemed to be anywhere near Aaron Connolly.
He was the tip of the spear, wasn't he? Yeah. They were playing him as a lone striker with three behind, which, I mean, look, it'd be amazing if that was his role. If he, in his mid-20s, he becomes an out-and-out number 9 who can score 15 to 20 goals in a Premier League season. That's the dream scenario, right? Yeah. Like, at the moment, he is not that player.
No, and look, formations play a part as well, and obviously Brighton are in really bad form. They haven't won in 11, and I wonder if he was in a team that, we've seen him in a team with Ireland where there's 2 up front, and that gives them a licence to pull out to the left, whereas he doesn't have to just stay in the box the whole time. Look, there's no harm in him obviously playing as a central striker, because he's going to learn. He's going to learn what you have to do. You have to limit your movement, but you have to be clever with it.
Yeah, I think it's a good sign that he gets a start. There was definitely a difficulty with injury and with the manager. It looked like earlier in the year there's just some brooding questions around discipline and application and all that kind of stuff. And Potter putting him back in last night, I think, is positive, right? We'd love to see some performance. We'd love to see some achievement now over the next couple of games. There's a run of games coming, and if he can keep getting picked or play his way into the team over the next while, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting to hear Graham Potter's comments after the game, saying they actually tried to get the game called off. And this is the problem now that, and Jurgen Klopp alluded to it yesterday, he wants to know basically how many players in a squad have tested positive, because you hear that there's a certain amount of cases in a squad, but we don't know if it's players or staff. We're told it could be 4 players, 3 staff, but some clubs are getting games called off and then others aren't. And it's just about trying to be consistent. Already this morning, Thomas Frank, the Brentford manager, while he was giving his press conference, was told you have 13 players in your squad that have tested positive. So he's now asking for their game against Southampton to be called off. Obviously, they were meant to play Manchester United on Tuesday. That game was pulled. So I would be saying, well, not a little bit, I'm very concerned that there's games that are getting called off and this is going to become more common. And what are the Premier League going to do? Are they going to start taking fans out of stadiums again?
I don't know. I mean,
it is different this time around because obviously there's the vaccine and now fans going to games have to be fully vaccinated, and obviously there's going to be booster shots given out as well. But
it's good that they have such competent leadership, though, who are running the country so well. And I've got full confidence in that crowd at the moment who are in charge to do the right thing.
Jurgen Klopp's message yesterday was stronger than anything Boris Johnson has said.
It would be like completely at odds and a complete opposite of a situation we had in January, where the whole country in England is locked down and about, whereas the only way to stop this right now is to put the players back into these bubbles while you've got full stadiums and while society in England is relatively open. It would just be a complete contrast. So can they do that? Can they put the players in the bubble? I'm sure clubs are considering doing that themselves because they need to stop the outbreaks themselves.
Well, they've had to change the testing, like the Plan B as they've called it, but I hope their Plan B is more effective than the Crow Park Plan B pitch invasion. So it's it'll be interesting.
Plan B is effectively get out there quick, lads.
Do we want to go back to those empty stadiums? Like, would you rather watch empty stadiums or say a 3 or 4 week break?
A 3 or 4 week break.
Yeah, I watched the Bayern and Barcelona game in the Champions League last week. It was awful.
Yeah.
Like, it was bad enough that you're watching such a great club like Barcelona completely struggle and get outplayed, but then it's all
meaningless.
Meaningless, even though it wasn't in terms of what was on the line.
They won't take the 3 or 4 week break, though, as we know, because of exactly.
Yeah,
that's
because
why
the World Cup next year, and we haven't even talked about the Africa Cup of Nations. Where does that lie in all of this?
It looks like it might not be happening. There's definitely very strong reporting coming from various French outlets that conversations have already started about scrapping it. So Liam Scales played the full game again last night. We were talking a little bit earlier on. He played against Betis, played against Joaquin, who's literally old enough to be his dad. He's getting games. He's in the team. So it's not every game. There was definitely.
Last night was his first league start, and look, Celtic are they're just ravaged with injuries. And they had their team last night against Ross County had several defenders. But no, it's great that he's getting in, because I wonder in his head, did he know going over after finishing the season with Shamrock Rovers where he was going to fit in, or like how long would it take him to get a run in? It was a massive result for Celtic to score in the 97th minute, because they're 4 points in it. But if there are 6 points in it, then 6 points doesn't sound like much, but in Scottish football it's huge, because
Rangers can relax.
Yeah.
And they can start playing football as opposed to, we need to defend this now, and a completely psychological shift. How far away is he from an Ireland squad? How far away is he from playing for Ireland? What does he need to do over the next 6 months, 12 months? How long will that take?
Well, he's been in Ireland squads, and obviously Stephen Kenny knows him from when he was the 21s manager, and I actually think that's a position that's up for grabs. I know the whole debate about Doherty and Coleman playing in the same team, and actually the night in Portugal it worked well when they were playing on opposite flanks, but McLean has played there. Enda Stevens he's not at the same level he was a couple of years ago when he was playing in that Sheffield United team in the Premier League, and he had a consistent run of games because he's had injuries. So I think that left back is certainly a position Stephen Kenny would be willing to try, and we're obviously the Nations League, we're talking about it. We know that Stephen Kenny has said that he wants to win the group, so it will be interesting to see what kind of team selections he goes with in the Nations League later in the year or next year, when there's serious points on the line, because you can't turn around and say I want to win the Nations League and then before the first game you're playing an experimental side saying it's about blooding new players. I think Stephen Kenny's already done that. He's blooded the players. Now it's a case of trying to get them into the side. But if it's only one or two positions because players are unavailable, then there is going to be an opportunity for somebody like Liam Scales.
Do we not need to check our kind of expectation on that Nations League thing a little bit? Like,
well, let's see
chances are we'll be third favourites.
Let's see what the group is, though.
Yeah,
no, what I'm saying is he wants to go for it. He wants to pick. He wants to treat the games like they're qualifiers.
Yeah.
Not like the previous Nations League campaign. But then again, the previous Nations League campaign was completely hit by COVID, where it was a case of you can pick from a certain squad, but he was losing players left, right, and centre. Some of them even just a couple of hours before kickoff. So,
what about Will Smallbone, who started last night as well? Got an hour. You saw a bit of that.
So I thought he was very eager, in a positive sense. It's not sometimes you kind of watch these Irish players get in their break and they can be a little bit passive for the game, passes them by. Not Will Smallbone really.
No, and it's great to see him back in after the knee injury, and you know he was getting Premier League game time under Hasenhüttl before the injury. Probably more so out on the right. I don't think that's his best position, but when you're a young player and you're told there's a role for you in a Premier League starting 11, you don't say, "Oh, boss, I want to actually play in the middle." You take, and again, I'm very much a believer in if you're playing in positions that you're not that comfortable in, that's never the worst thing because you can learn a lot from it in terms of just managing 90 minutes and responsibility. And
yeah, that's the Ajax way.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So what was interesting was I saw it during the week. Somebody put up, I don't know who tweeted, if you've got a last minute free kick, which player do you want standing over it? And straight away I thought Ward Prowse, because he's lethal, and he scored another one last night. And
it was amazing.
You just know when there's a free kick in that zone, you just think if he doesn't score, he's going to go very close. That was a brilliant free kick.
The pace of that was like, wow.
Yeah, you ain't saving that.
Absolutely sensational stuff. So one last thing we should talk about is Sergio Aguero and the career that he had. It's not underrated, is it? It's right up there with all of the great Premier League legends. Like when the history of the Premier League is going to be written, it'll be Thierry Henry, Sergio Aguero, Alan Shearer. These are the strikers we're talking about. He's at that level.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And I was watching the press conference yesterday, and I just think unfortunately it was at the Nou Camp where he only had 5 games. And, you know, Pep Guardiola was one of those sitting there in the crowd. And it was a tough watch because they played a montage of some of his best goals. They included his one goal for Barca, which came in Clásico.
I was there.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, I actually had to leave for a flight before he scored the goal. So
I was going to say you could have said that.
Did you really have to leave for a flight?
I did.
Is that the actual story?
Yeah, I actually did.
Did you catch this
make the flight? Hey.
Yeah, the flight. Yeah, I was there in plenty of time and all.
But I just thought he was there having to watch the montage, and it just almost reminded me of the night that Andy Lee was in this studio after announcing his retirement, having to listen to a montage Richie put together where, you know, he had tears in his eyes, and Aguero was sitting on the stage having to watch this. And, you know, people would say footballers, look, they have a privileged life, they earn millions and millions, they don't have to worry about it, but he'll never play football again, and I wouldn't say that's even sunk in for him yet. But obviously Manchester City is, a lot of people remember him from that, but why did he get his move to Manchester City? Because he was unbelievable for Atletico Madrid as well. But I think he'll definitely go down as one of the greats of Premier League strikers. I wonder, like there is certain players, like English strikers will probably get more recognition, but Aguero was...
Who are you picking ahead of him for your 5 sides?
Henry.
Apart from that, right? So, yeah. But any English strikers? I mean, I'm not picking Harry Kane ahead of him. I don't think.
Definitely not. And that was probably who I was alluding to.
Right.
As good as Harry Kane is, he's nowhere near as good as Sergio Aguero was.
Yeah, like we were talking about, like central strikers. Yeah. I mean, the only attackers that you'd have ahead of him other than Henry for sure would be Ronaldo and Salah, in terms of people who have played in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Alan Shearer is definitely very underrated if you're not putting him in that company.
Yeah, no, it's like, I mean, for me, I think there's a debate to be had there between Shearer and Aguero.
I mean, it would be amazing to have seen Alan Shearer play for a team that was really good. Like, that's the problem, right?
for a sustained period of time.
Yeah, there's obviously the Blackburn short period, and then there's a bit where Newcastle are okay, but like Aguero played in the best team with the most resources for the entire time he was there, and had the best manager. Imagine having seen what he says he doesn't care about it.
You think Shearer could have got to 300 goals or something like that?
I think so.
Shearer would have won 3 European Cups with Man United. They would have been unstoppable if he'd signed for Man United.
Not even a question for you guys. Shearer's ahead of Aguero, 100%.
Like Shearer's across all of the best aspects of Harry Kane and Aguero in terms of the finishing and the explosiveness and the brute force and like the heading ability. He's got it's a whole game.
And look, I know I saw Wayne Rooney included on some of those lists, and as good as Rooney was, and probably a different type of player in terms of being able to do more damage outside the box and having that ability. But if you're talking, I think Henry kind of covers that position. If you were picking if it was dream team stuff. But I said it was a tough watch, and it'll be interesting to see what he does now. I mean, does he want to be a coach? Does he want to go into punditry?
So that is the end of Aguero. Any thoughts on Pep being there when Aguero's dad said Pep should shut up and stop crying crocodile tears?
Oh, this is when you think of
there was a row.
Season. Yeah. Like
Pep's making peace.
It was very strange watching Pep there. Yeah, going back to Barcelona, obviously. I thought the setting. Obviously, look, he's on the books of Barcelona when
the retirement
the unfortunate retirement happens. But it probably would have been more fitting if it was at Manchester City. It was a small enough group there, but. Yeah, you kind of feel Pep in Barcelona isn't done yet either, isn't it?
No, it feels that way. Let's see who Xavi signs. If Xavi signs all of the players he's being linked with at the moment, you'd be like, this is not going to end well. Phil, good stuff. Thanks very much. Thanks. It's 9:35 this morning. Here's what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio today. OTB Gold, Mick O'Connell at 80. That's a few years ago now. That was our celebratory interview with Mick that you should listen to for the crack. 2 o'clock is live the Snap. They'll be talking about Urban Meyer, who got sacked overnight by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Leaders' questions with Stuart Lancaster at 3. Our retro panel is When GA Meets Basketball at 4. And OTB Gold tonight is Sonia O'Sullivan, and the lads are live tonight, where Nathan can put his money where his mouth is when it comes to reminding John Giles about the 7-0. That is our lot this morning, but stay tuned because we have a brilliant piece for you now. This is Red Bull Racing's Patrick Harding, who is the performance coach for Alex Albon on the Red Bull team tomorrow. Rugby with Alan Quinlan, Dara McElhenney, the Irish athlete, and a crappy quiz, which I won't be part of. Oh, and happy Christmas to you.
You're interested in being on that panel? You will be a part of?
Panel.
Do you want to be on the crappy quiz tomorrow?
No.
Okay, sorry. Okay, well then happy Christmas to you too.
I'm rejecting you.
Many happy returns to you.
It's too late. Jeffrey Linehan says good morning from Chicago. It is indeed a very good morning to you because it's quite late now at this stage, Jeffrey, but thanks very much for being with us. Anyway, here is Patrick Harding from Red Bull Racing. Enjoy.
So I think we're all just about coming down off the high that Sunday's Formula 1 finale gave us. The interest levels in the sport have probably never been higher thanks to Drive to Survive. And one Irishman, well, you might have spotted him on Drive to Survive, has been right there pit side over the last few seasons. And I'm delighted he is with us now. Patrick Harding, how are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you for having me on.
Performance coach for Alec Albon, who's on his way back into Formula 1 next season. Had a year out of it after a couple of years there, which is where people might have seen you on Drive to Survive. Were you around the circuit this year at all?
Yeah, I was there a little bit. Alex was a reserve this year, so he travelled to the majority of the races, and there was a few where he did some tyre testing after the race weekend. So for those race weekends, I was there, yeah. So it was nice to dip my toe back in. But I was working in Formula 3 this year, which is 7 races on the same circuits and the same race weekends as F1. So I got a little sense of the buzz again. It was nice.
Your background, a lot of it's in physiotherapy. You worked with the Arsenal Academy. You were with Team GB at 2012 and 2016 Olympics. You were with Sydney University around the AFL. How did you move from physiotherapy into becoming a performance coach? Which I would imagine is more on the mental side of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So While I was at Arsenal, I did a master's in strength and conditioning, just to kind of bolster my skills from a physio point of view, but also to have a little bit more understanding around training load and how that affected players and people that I worked with. And just around that time, I got approached by Michael Conlon and Paul Dunn, the golfer, just to help them out individually with some work that they were trying to do at the time. And what I started to do was really enjoy the level of detail that you could get into individual athletes compared to trying to manage a squad, which you would at Arsenal, of 25, 30 players. And that kind of really sparked my interest in the individual side. And then an opportunity came up in motorsport, which afforded me the opportunity to make that full-time. And exactly like you said, I think you quickly realize in elite sport that, the majority of people competing at that level have the technical ability, and what it's really about is execution under pressure. So I went back and did my mental performance qualifications a couple of years ago. And I guess what I do now is put that skill set of physiotherapy, S&C, and mental performance coaching around elite individual athletes. And I guess the terminology is performance coach, but that's what it is really, is just combining those skill sets in trying to support these individuals to grow.
I hadn't realised you'd been involved with Paul Dunn, and golfers are perhaps the most interesting of all sports people when it comes to working with psychologists, and Padraig Harrington's work with Bob Rotella and various different people throughout the years. With Paul Dunn, whenabouts did you start working with him?
So I worked with Paul, actually, probably from the end of his first year as a pro until probably like 2 seasons on. So I was with him when he had the BMW Masters win, and he had some really good top 10 finishes. And I think what you saw with Paul over the last few years is just a young guy in professional sport adapting to the lifestyle, adapting to demands. And, what we do see with individuals, a lot of individuals of his age is, you get peaks and troughs of performance. And he seems to be coming back pretty well now, and hopefully he'll find some consistency in his game and get back to where he was before.
Yeah, here's hoping. So in terms of Formula One and your work with Alex Albon, are you employed by the Red Bull racing team, or are you employed by the driver himself?
So initially it was through the Red Bull racing team, but that was specifically with Alex, and I actually moved from Formula 2 to Formula 1 with Alex. Now that we moved to Williams, it's 50-50, so it'll be 50% with Williams and 50% with Alex. But what tends to happen with performance coaching in F1, kind of like golf and caddies, although they're very different roles, is that you move with the driver. So you move teams kind of wherever the driver goes, you go. So yeah, I'm looking forward to a little bit of a change of scenery next year and see what it's like at Williams.
Yeah. In terms of what you do with an individual like an Alex Albon, on the outside you would look at Formula 1 drivers and think, confidence wise, they all look absolutely bulletproof. To get to the absolute pinnacle of your sport, to take the risks that they take, there can be no room for doubt. I guess there'd be no need for you if there was no doubt, though.
Absolutely. And again, you look at that young generation of Formula 1 drivers: Lando Norris, George Russell, Alex Albon, Charles Leclerc, Nicholas Latifi to a certain extent. Those guys all came up, Pierre Gasly, they all came up together through karting. So there's quite a familiarity there. And we have an assumption about professional athletes that just because they're in that environment, like you said, they're bulletproof. But actually what you see with that group is a group of young individuals who have been in the bubble of motorsport for the majority of their adult lives. And they actually don't get the exposure to, I guess, normal environments that we would have, where we've developed our emotional strategies. And actually sometimes they're the ones who need even more support because they haven't had that exposure. So while they're very confident and competent in their technical application, a lot of the work, like you said, is supporting them through the pressures of being in a sport where there's only 20 places on the grid in the world, and actually the media scrutiny and the level of people kind of, I guess, getting involved in your lifestyle is through the roof compared to any other sport in the world. So, you just have to look at the fallout after the Verstappen and Hamilton tussle at the weekend. It's all over the world. And at times during Alex's Red Bull career, he was on the front and back pages of newspapers, and that's a difficult thing for a young guy to handle. So a lot of the time, that's what you're really supporting him with.
From the outside, it seems as though a lot of them would be very similar personalities, though, that they would be that more type A personality where they're incredibly focused, incredibly ambitious and competitive. Is there room for different types of personalities on the grid when you get to that high level, or does everybody need to actually have a similar sort of set of characteristics?
I think what you find is that each of those drivers has a very specific drive, an emotional drive, not a physical drive, but an emotional drive that has been the driving force for them to get to that point in their careers. They've obviously also had the technical ability to support that. And some of them have also had billionaire fathers, but that's a different story. But they will all have certain elements that will have gotten them to that point. They all absolutely have different characteristics in terms of their personality. You know, you take somebody like Alex and George, who are best friends, you know, it's safe to say, and I would say to George himself, he loves the media, he loves the spotlight, he loves getting his picture taken. Alex is the complete opposite. Even though they're best mates, he doesn't like being in front of the camera. If all he had to do was drive, then it would be the perfect job for him. So even though there's similarities in terms of what makes them successful, their individual personalities can differ quite a lot. And even if you talk about cross sports, and I work with Michael Conlon, I've been working with Michael since he turned professional. Alex and Michael couldn't have come from two different backgrounds and exist in two different worlds in terms of their sport. But actually, there's a real understanding between the two of them around what makes them successful. And with that, there's a real bridge in that friendship, and they get on like a house on fire, even though they shouldn't. So I think with professional sports people at that level, they recognize the traits in other sports people that makes them successful. But there's definitely room for individual characteristics there.
I'm sure your work with Alex, considering you seem to spend so much time with him, it's almost a 24/7 gig at times, is built around the entire life package in terms of getting optimum performance throughout the week and picking moments to relax, picking moments to be intense. How much of your work is spent on the 90 minutes of the race, or the 2 hours from when he first sits into the car to when the race finishes? And what sort of process do you want him to go through from sitting on the grid to the lights going off to actually the mindset he has when the race is on?
Yeah, so look, at that point, all of physical preparation is done. So he's fueled, he's had the right nutrition on board, he's had his physical preparation to actually physically be in the car. At that point, we'll have done a lot of work in breaking that first part of that race down into segments. And what we'll do is work on visualization for each of those segments of that race. So if you even take the start procedure, so we'll have visualizations for his start procedure, his procedure off the grid, you know, his options of plan A, plan B, plan C down into turn one. You know, he'll work through scenarios where he's on the left side of the grid, right side of the grid, what the cars in front do. And actually probably one of the key elements of any race weekend is getting around turn one with your car intact. And then it's about, okay, what is your overall strategy from a team perspective? And that might be to do with your tires. So is it a case of, right, you've got soft tires, you've got 2 or 3 laps where you can make up some positions, so let's get after the cars in front? Or is it a case of, okay, you're going to go along on this set of tires, you need to maintain that position that you've got and try and manage those tires as best you can for the next 5 or 6 laps? So we'll probably have 15 to 20 different scenarios that he'll use visualization to work his mind through them, so that in those split seconds when different things happen on the grid, especially into turn one, he's already had that mental process of how he's going to react to that, and he's already worked through the solution. Now, when he gets past that first 2 or 3 laps, the racer and Alex comes out, and actually what his biggest strength is he is a racer. He's a Sunday guy, you know, so probably the biggest part of his development was on Saturday and in qualifying. Actually, once we've worked through those first 2 or 3 laps, I know he's exactly where he needs to be, and his own technical ability and that natural racer in him takes over, and that stuff, you know, is all him. And like I said, that's probably the strongest aspect of his technical ability.
Yeah. And that natural racer is obviously something you never want to lose. And I'm thinking back to a panel we had last Saturday ahead of the final race in Abu Dhabi, and John Watson and David Kennedy were 2 of the guests, and talking about driving in the 60s and 70s and how at that stage sort of death was always on your shoulder, that it was something you were always aware of, and their friends were dying. It was such commonplace. Drivers these days, like in terms of fear, do you want them to be fearless? Do you want them going on the track fully aware of the dangers? How do you approach that side of it?
Look, it's you, and we talk about it a lot with Alex around driving with controlled aggression, and that's very different to being reckless. So it's about making aggressive decisions at the right time, and that again comes back to technical ability. And there's been a lot of chat around Max about how aggressive he is when he drives. That's his driving style. he's always driven like that. You know, when he turned into Formula One driver initially, you know, the media used to call him Verstappen because he had so many knocks. But it's about learning when to take those risks and when not to. I think they all respect the speed that they drive at, and unfortunately, accidents still do happen. You know, look at Jules Bianchi a few years ago, and unfortunately, look at Antoine Hubert in Formula 2 a couple of years ago in Spa. You know, that was Alex's first race weekend at Red Bull. So unfortunately, they understand, and obviously look at Romain.
How does the conversation go with Alex after a weekend like that?
You know what? You don't get to that level without having a few accidents. And Alex has had a couple of big shunts. And I think once you've had a few, they really understand how safe these cars actually are. And like I said, you just have to look at Grosjean's accident in Bahrain last year to appreciate the level of safety that these cars actually carry. And they have, you know, ultimate confidence that when they are in that car, they're as safe as they're going to be. And Alex will laugh and say he's safer in his Formula 1 car than he is on the M1 because he knows everybody around him is, you know, at the level of driving that he is. So, yeah, look, you don't spend a lot of time talking about it because it's something that you don't necessarily draw attention to. That crash in Bahrain, you know, all the drivers were back in the pit lane and it was replaying on the TV. For all those guys, once they know that the driver is out of the car, then that's it. They've moved on already. And, you know, that crash happened. Alex came straight on the radio. He was in front of the crash. He'd come around the hairpin and looked back up and just saw the ball of flames. And he came straight on the radio and he was like, who was it? Are they okay? By the time he'd got back around to the pit lane, we knew it was Grosjean. We knew he'd gotten out of the car. And that's it. Alex has moved on already. Once they know they're safe, then it's like a driver's code, you know? Is the driver okay? Irrespective of what rivalries you've got, is the driver okay? And once they know they're okay, then they're on to, okay, where am I on the grid? Is it going to be a safety flag restart? Is it a rolling start? What's the technical, you know? So, yeah, we don't spend a lot of time on it.
You mentioned there that the drivers, because they're all on the same level, there's that respect for each other. And people often look at Formula 1 and say, oh, it's not about the drivers now, it's about who has the best car, but then the best drivers get the best cars. When you are looking through that grid, what is it that separates the guys who are at the top of the grid from the bottom of the grid?
Probably a mixture of technical ability and natural racing skill. And look, you look at any sport. I think what highlights it even more is that, again, F1 is so condensed. There's 20 seats in the world. Whereas if you look at the Manchester City squad or the Liverpool squad, there's players on varying abilities, even though they're all professional footballers. And that's none different than it is in Formula 1. You cannot argue that, you know, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen are probably the two hottest drivers in Formula 1 at the minute. But in the right car, somebody like a Charles Leclerc, somebody like a George Russell, somebody like a Lando, someone like an Alex, they could win a championship. So there's probably 8 or 9 drivers there that have the capacity to win a championship, but maybe aren't in a championship winning car. And I think that's what we saw this year with Max. You know, he's had 6 years in Formula 1. You know, youngest ever driver to win a Formula 1 race. He won a Formula 1 race before he was allowed to drive a road car. He didn't have a road car license. And it was a bit of a case over the last few years of, well, when are Red Bull going to have a car that is capable of challenging Mercedes? And what we saw this year was a Red Bull car that was capable of challenging Mercedes. And then we had what we had last weekend, which was a race to the finish, which was, you know, incredible for the neutrals to watch.
I don't know if you could describe yourself as a neutral with that Red Bull side of things, but what was it like being around it over the last few weeks, the sort of rolling circus that is Formula 1? How different was it compared to even when you started out in the sport? And yeah, just looking closely at Verstappen and Hamilton, it seemed just sort of as intense a sporting rivalry as you could get right now.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there was Max had huge momentum, and then in Brazil, when Max probably should have taken another step forward, the race format over that race weekend with the sprint race and then the feature race on the Sunday really gave Hamilton an opportunity to, take that grid penalty and get himself backed up and to win that race. it definitely felt like there was a bit of a shift of momentum back to Lewis in terms of, I guess, that confidence in the car and the car being in a place. And then the car itself found some incredible pace over the last few races. So I think it was like one of those classic boxing matches, 12 rounders where, each round a different fighter comes out swinging. And I think that's what you saw, which was two drivers probably, Lewis is going for his 8th World Championship and Max is probably just hitting his stride in terms of what he's capable of. So it was a really incredible atmosphere in the garage and, in the factory over the last few weeks. And I think, irrespective of your opinions on what happened and Mike Massey and his calls, I think either driver deserved to win that championship. And
get off the fence, Patrick. Come on. What did you really think of Michael Massey's call?
Let's just say he's got himself a lifetime supply of Red Bull, that's for sure. But he had the right to make that call, but it was a very strange call. You either don't unlap any cars or you unlap them all. To choose the 4 cars in between Hamilton and Verstappen, unlap them and then go, right, safety car in, let's do this. And Max on fresh tyres and Lewis on 35, 40 lap olds, hard tyres. There was only going to be one winner. And I think that's the frustration. Although he had the capacity and the authority to make that call, it was a very strange call.
Yeah.
But I'm not complaining.
I'm sure you're not, and I'm sure nobody around Red Bull is. The interest levels are obviously off the scale, largely driven, it seems, by Drive to Survive. And I'm one of those people who's a lapsed Formula 1 nut and absolutely loved it during the Senna, Prost, Schumacher years, and sort of drifted out and went along with that assumption that it's all about the cars now, not about the drivers. Have you noticed, been around the grid, the impact that this title race and Drive to Survive has had? Does it feel like a rejuvenated, a changed sport?
Absolutely. And I think what it's done is brought in a new generation of fans that are younger, more clued into social media. You just have to look at Twitch and, the younger drivers' social media accounts and the level of followers that those guys have. And that's predominantly come through Netflix. I think what Sky Sports and Channel 4 can be guilty of at times is their commentary being so technical that can actually turn off the neutral. But what you do with somebody like with Netflix is, and the reason that a lot of us follow football teams or we get invested in certain sports people is there's an emotional attachment there. We find it a little out about their story and we connect with that and then suddenly we follow them and we're looking out for them. And that's exactly what Netflix did. It gave us an insight into these drivers as who they are as human beings and actually some of the really difficult stories that some of them had, Alex included, in how they've gotten to Formula 1. Obviously there's some guys who have fast-tracked and that's why they're there. But, for somebody like Alex or somebody like Esteban Ocon, their journey to Formula 1 has been pretty incredible and they've had to fight through a lot of adversity to get there. So something like a Netflix gives us a little insight into that. And like I said, that has brought a huge new wave of followers, which has been incredible. And then, like you said, on the back of those first 2 or 3 seasons of Drive to Survive, you have a season like this season, which has been the best season for 12 years.
Yeah.
Mercedes Hamilton ran away with the championship last year by 150 points. And then this year we've got 2 drivers coming into the last race of the season on exactly the same points. It's like Netflix wrote the script themselves. So I'm sure people are hanging out for next season on Netflix already.
We're going to see a lot more of Alex Albon next season. I saw him been interviewed after the race by Sky and talking about his move to Williams. Just briefly, could you give us the background where you talk about how he's had to fight to get to Formula 1?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of stuff out there around Alex. He started in karting at a young age, was funded by his parents. They fell into some financial difficulties at 15. He was dropped by Red Bull as a junior driver, had no funding, relied on his ability to get drives through single-seaters, Formula 4, Formula 3, Formula 2. Didn't have budget, but teams believed in him, gave him an opportunity. Came down to the last race of the Formula 2 season, and it was between Lando Norris, George Russell and Alex for the championship. George came out on top that race, but it looked like Alex was going to Formula E. And then he got a phone call from Helmut Marko who said there was a seat at Toro Rosso and he wanted Alex in it. So at multiple times through Alex's career, it looked like that dream was over, including, this time last year when Red Bull decided to go for a little bit more experience in Sergio Perez. And again, you see that resolve and that resilience from Alex to fight his way back even this year again, and have a number of teams interested in him as a driver for next year. And that's just credit to him as an individual and him as a sports person and him as a driver. He has a lot of stock in the paddock. And yeah, I think Williams is a good place for him next year. And I think with the new regulation changes, I think the gaps will be a lot closer. And with that Mercedes engine at Williams, I think they'll be strong next year.
Yeah, it is incredible how quickly it can turn in Formula One when you look at Sergio Perez, and it was a big part of last season's Drive to Survive, where it looks as though he's going to be out of the sport, and a little bit of luck in one race, and next thing he gets one of the prime seats in the sport, and
absolutely
on the final day of the season makes a huge impact in getting Max Verstappen the title. So when does prep start then? Because the interest levels are huge. Everyone's going to be talking about it post-Christmas, building up towards March. In terms of your next few months and working with Alex Albon, what will you be doing?
Yeah, so we've been pretty much working away all this year, and our goal was to get him back in the seat for next year. So it's been a pretty continuous process. I guess the only thing for Alex, the only consideration for us from a training point of view is the fact that he's not had a lot of time in a Formula One car this year. He's done some tire tests and he's driven DTM, but they're very, very different. He's doing a lot of sim at the minute at Williams, and then early January, we go on a 10-day training camp, and then it's all going blazing. He'll have a lot of factory time between the middle of January and winter test in the middle of February. And once you hit winter test, it's really just a countdown until that first race of the season. So while people are probably longing for next season's start, it'll come around pretty quickly, and it'll come around pretty quickly for Alex as well.
And when are you meeting the producers of Drive to Survive to make sure you get one of those starring roles next year?
Don't worry, I've got him on WhatsApp. I've already been messaging him. The Netflix guys are really good. They embed themselves in the team really well, and you understand that they're around, but they're also really good about what they put in and what they don't put in. So,
what don't they put in?
A lot of bad language and a lot of frustration. But they mic you up in the morning, and you just forget the microphone is there, and suddenly you're having a conversation with somebody, and you look around and there's a camera 10 meters away, and you're thinking, oh crap, they've got the audio and they've got the visuals, so they can use that. So you have to just try and scupper it as much as you can. But no, they're good guys, and you appreciate that they have a job to do, and like we talked about already, these sports rely on fans, and a series like Drive to Survive brings in huge amounts of fans, and that's what's going to keep the sport going. I don't know if there's any other Irish people out there where you can do that old Irish thing of just speaking a bit of Gaeilge when the camera's on, so they won't understand what you're doing. Well, would you believe Nikita Mazepin's physio is Irish as well? A guy called Damien Kelly. He's a good lad, but obviously Nikita missed last weekend's race because he tested positive for COVID. So yeah, he's a good lad. There's would you'd be surprised? There's a few of us around the paddock, not in terms of coaching, but there's a guy from Cork, Michael Manning, who is Max Verstappen's number 3 on a race day. So he's pretty high up in Red Bull, and he had a key component to Max's championship win this year. So. All right, we might try and have a chat with him as well, I think. Yeah, we get everywhere, don't worry. Yes, of course. As you know. Patrick, great stuff. Listen, very best of luck next season. Can't wait to see how Alex gets on and how you get on as well. And thanks a lot for joining us. No bother at all, it's been a pleasure.
OTB AM. With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved